it's out of Top Lobster Productions.
We are being hypnotized by people like this. Newsreaders, politicians, teachers, lecturers. We are in a country and in a world that is being run by unbelievably sick people. The chasm between what we're told is going on and what is really going on is absolutely enormous.
Oh yeah, dude. There's some Nephilim.
It's like we all know what's going down, but no one's saying shit what happened to the home of the brave. These motherfuckers, they controlling us now, and no one's talking about how they made us modern day slaves. And everybody's just walking around, head in the clouds, and won't awaken to a dead in the grave. But then it's too late, we need to be ready to raise up. Welcome to the end of days.
Everybody is slaves, only some are aware that the government releasing poison in the
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of Nephilim Death Squad. I am David Lee Corbo, aka The Raven. That is Top Lobster, the father of disinformation. Before we get into today's guest, a little reminder, around the 30-minute mark, we're going to go live exclusively to patreon.com/Nephilim Death Squad, where you can continue enjoying this episode, engaging in the live chat, gaining early access to episodes before they're released, early access to Bohemian Grove tickets, and the fabled discount code off of merchandise at toplobster.com.
It's there
time. Look at it.
Look, guys, click collections. I know everybody's mad. Click collections. Merch discount links. You should find the discount link that is according to your tier. So it's like 10, 15, 20%, 30% at the DO and
I can't
above.
believe we don't do a 33%. What a
I'm
dropping
gonna make
of
it
the
30.
ball.
You know what? Honestly,
Yeah.
30% is like basically. I'm
Basically
almost
free. It's
paying
cost.
for. It's almost at cost.
Yeah.
But 33% is too tempting
Go
to not
ahead,
do.
take our profit margin. Why don't you? Yep, it's finally there, guys. Patreon.com/Nephilim Death Squad. Discount codes off of toplobster.com. Let's bring that. Let's show that to the people. What am I getting a discount code off of? A super cool shit, you losers. Let's see. What can we scroll down? Let's find something new to highlight. I do really like the acidic. It's funny, but we've done that one before. Let's see. Y'all tribbing. I think that's a banger. Let's bring up the y'all tribbing. We don't. There it is. You guys like that,
There's
don't
a lot
you?
of, I'm trying to just cause strife in the Christian community.
That's all.
Is it pre? Is it post? Is it mid? We don't know.
We don't know, but y'all do be tribbing. Y'all do be tribbing. Speaking of causing strife in the Christian community, speaking of making Christians mad, we have, strangely enough, he decided to come back, and this quickly, too. We didn't leave a bad taste in his mouth. It is Sean of Kingdom in Context. Welcome back, brother. It's been a long time. Before we get into the conversation, let's remind everybody where they can find your work. Shit, we can't hear him. We muted him. He's muted. Unbelievable.
Hey guys, thanks for having me back on kingdomincontext.com. We're YouTube, Rumble, and Facebook. You can also check us out at daysofnoah.com if you want to see the animated series we're putting together about Noah's lifespan. And so yeah, we're excited.
But
Dude,
did we say that it was
you
a banger?
gotta-
Getting daysofnoah.com is like that's a killer domain name to have.
You
grabbed.
got to bring a little more energy when you're talking about Days of Noah. This is
It
so
cost
I
a
love
pretty
it.
penny.
Oh, I'm sure it
sure.
did, dude. I'm sure it did. I'm actually really pumped for this animated series that you're working on. I know we showed a trailer from it last time. Super cool, and it's super detailed in all of the little things you can catch if you're paying attention. Very pumped for this,
Which is why we had to have you back on like immediately after we hung up. We were like, yo, just come back because there's so much meat on the bone.
Yeah.
So many things we don't know. And you're back. So like we want to get into all sorts of Nephilim stuff, as we say on the show.
Yeah. So I don't know where we want to start. I mean, we were talking about your adherence to the Sabbath a little bit before we started the show, and you said, that after 15 years of being a Christian, you then decided that this was the move for you. But there was something else that we were talking about right before that. Do you remember what it was, Top? You'd think I would write these things down.
Oh, it's the AI integration.
Oh,
I
the
think
AI integration.
I see he's got a presentation set up. So how do we want to start this?
Maybe let's talk about the Sabbath, and let's do that because he has a whole presentation on this AI and how that's going to plan out. So let's talk about that a little bit. What caused you, after 15 years, Sean, of being a Christian, what made you decide that you were going to observe the Sabbath?
I stumbled upon some passages in Leviticus 23, Psalm 19 that says God's law and his instructions are eternal, everlasting. So it uses both the terms eternal and everlasting. It's like Psalm 140, Psalm 119, verse 142 says that his statutes and ordinances are everlasting. Sabbath is considered like an ordinance because it's considered a festival day that you do once a week, in addition to the festivals throughout the year that are also called Sabbaths, to which I also observe those as well, like Passover and Shavuot and the Feast of Tabernacles, things like that. And so I read that those were eternal, and I was like, wait a minute. Why have I grown up in church learning that they're all done away with and that it's just for dim? And I was like, wait a minute, what's going on here? And so I looked up the definition of the word eternal, and everlasting and eternal does mean eternal. And I said, okay, I need some additional proofs here. What's going on? So I started researching like the prophecies, end times eschatology, the coming kingdom of God. And all of them say that the festivals of God, which are his Sabbaths, of which the weekly is considered a feast day, once a week to rest, focus on God. They're all coming back. So like the kingdom come when there's peace on the earth and all nations are under the tutelage of Christ and they stop fighting each other, and all of them, everyone will be taught God's law. This is Isaiah chapter 2:2-5.
So what does that look like for you? And the Sabbath being Saturday, correct?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Well, no, because I'm retarded. And I don't really. There's a lot. The simplest concepts that you might take for granted are things that I'm still wrestling with to some degree or another. So when it comes to your observance, what does that look like for you?
I don't work for money, and I don't try to cause anyone else to work for money on my behalf. That's the general instruction of the Sabbath, guidelines that he lays down in the scriptures. And it's just simply, I take a day off. I focus on God. We focus on family. I spend time with my family. I try not to busy myself with any kind of work that is for profit. So our channel, we do a Sabbath live stream where we go over scripture, just talk with our audience about scripture, which is a common tradition that people will do on a Sabbath observance. You just, read the Bible and chat. It's kind of like having church, But so when I looked in the history, and it wasn't until like, was it the Council of Laodicea in the 300s that they officially banned the Sabbath, and they told people that we're not going to observe the practices of the Christians are now going to venerate the first day of the week and observe that as a Sabbath. And so you had this like official doctrinal statement, backed by the power of, the majority of bishops at the time. And also, of course, the Roman emperors, that they were to say that we're going to change this day of rest. And in fact, they kind of threatened people at the time that, that basically you needed to work on the seventh day. Otherwise you'd be considered lazy. So it went beyond just saying, hey, we want to change this day to a different day of the week, and not have the same instructions surrounding how you observe it. Then it became a demonization of it, to say, oh, if you try to keep this, you're Judaizing and you're lazy and you're disrespecting the Lord's Day, which is the day he rose, which has its own contentious argument around, like how many days was he in the heart of the earth, 3 days and 3 nights? When was he actually buried? Was it on a Wednesday or a Friday? So you have all that discussion that never got solved anyway, but it was just upon men's opinions. And so basically that means for 300 years after the resurrection of Christ, Christians were still keeping the seventh day as a day of rest until they were forced to change it.
It's interesting too, because so you're doing a live stream. I think my issue with the Sabbath is how goofy it gets. Like I have a design here. It's two Hasidic Jewish. It's the father and the son, and they're fishing with the fish wire, and it says the fish wire twirls, and it says "fooling God," because I'm from New York, where they put the fish wire above to like they create their edifice, so therefore they're allowed to do business within, and they do the whole lights thing. But you're using electricity. You're just not trading or trying to perform work to get money from.
Is it that much of an analytical issue, or is it just like, don't make money, don't work, focus on God, be with your family, that kind of a thing? Or is it worth going in? Because I know some people will steel man what they've done, and they'll say, well, they're actually interacting with the law of God to such a degree that they're trying to understand it in its minutia even. And so, the way that they would say is like, yeah, this is reverence and respect for God and God's law actually is the lens that they're looking at things through. But it's like, is that the point is the point to get lost in the minutia, or is the point to just,
Chill
spend
out.
that day, focus on God and not engage in what could be defined as work?
So, Top, what you just described is like Hasidic or Rabbinic Judaism's modern traditions they placed as what they call guardrails on top of the Sabbath instructions of God. This is what Christ reprimanded the Pharisees for doing in Mark chapter 7, when he said, "You neatly set aside the commandments of God for the sake of your traditions." He also talked in Matthew 23 about them creating a burden that's more than people could bear, but they don't lift a finger to help them. This is the burden that Peter and James are talking about in Acts chapter 15, when they're saying, well, when they're discussing certain types of traditional customs, and this is where you kind of have to look in the Greek, and Acts 15:1, where it talks about the customs of Moses, that these men were arguing with Paul and Barnabas about new converts, saying that they had to keep the customs of Moses and be circumcised and keep the law of Moses. And what they were talking about, there was a party of circumcision at the time, the same party of circumcision that Paul's addressed in 1 Corinthians 7, Ephesians 2, the whole book of Galatians. And they were going around following Paul around on his missionary journeys and in Judea as well, telling people who came to Christ that that wasn't good enough, that you had to go through the halakha rituals of modern Judaism of the time, which all their traditions, it's like their boot camp, if you will, for what they considered, you're not a part of Israel yet, just because you believe in a guy who says he's a prophet of God, even though they didn't believe in Christ, right? So that contention was there already. But these party of Pharisees of circumcision were saying to people that because you think that you're a part of Israel now because you believe in Christ, well, you're not. You still need to go through all these rituals, one of which was a process of circumcision and learning a certain amount of information before they considered you part of Israel. And that's not in God's law. That was their man-made traditions that made it a stumbling block and made it much more difficult. So in the modern day, what you just explained, Top, is what they're doing with the wires, and they're trying to like find loopholes and how they can still do things and set aside the actual commandment in order so they can still conduct business. They even have a way of doing it. They call it the Shavas Goim. You ever heard that term?
Yeah.
I have a shirt of it. Yeah. It's just a light switch. The shirt's
Yeah, you know that, right? Yeah, so they'll grab somebody who's not even observing, right? And they'll try to make him do what they call work. Now, here's the crazy part: turn on a light does not work according to Scripture. That's their modern interpretations, right? It's like they take they go overboard.
Oh,
on
there it is right here. This is the
fooling
graphic.
God. There it is.
Yeah.
There it is.
We
So
do a
they-
little bit of angering the. It's not.
It's not nice, dude.
It's not nice. We gotta
Starting
stop.
a microwave, turn on the oven, turn on the lights, all that kind of stuff is so that's not instructing the Sabbath as far as work. It's about what you're doing for profit. Now the will say, well, you're turning on that light switch is causing somebody else to work, but they completely ignore this conversation of being in the dispersion which was prophesied, means all of us are in the land of our enemies. If we believe in Christ Jesus as our Savior, as the God of Israel, as our High Priest and Redeemer, we are grafted into the Commonwealth of Israel, as Paul tries to explain in Romans and Ephesians. And so, as a result of that, we are not collectively gathered in Israel under His authority, like literally going up to Jerusalem to be able to see the King and consult with Him and join Him for festivals and celebrations. We're scattered across the world, as Deuteronomy 30 and many other passages talk about, everywhere in the land of our enemies. And this means we do not have control over civil services, the corporate Sabbath observances, as far as a government institution. So basically what I'm saying is I can't stop my local municipality from going down there and maintaining the water lines on a Saturday if it breaks, because that's just where my tax dollars go, right? I can't. I pay once a month. I pay the electricity bill, but I'm not down there at the power plant 300 miles away making sure that the power plant's working. Somebody else is maintaining it on that day. So I can't opt out is the idea. Like I can't submit my electrical bill and say I only want to pay for these days of the month and not on Sabbaths. Turn off my bill on the Sabbath, right? I can't do that. So because we have no control over these things, and this is we're in the land of our enemies. This is the idea of being in dispersion, and only when Christ returns are all people gathered from under the heaven that are believers to actually live in the New Jerusalem, to where these types of things can be monitored in a practical, loving way. But so right now, it's like there is natural concessions that have to be made, right? So in the same way that Christ tried to explain to the Pharisees, who were always trying to accuse him of why do you call yourself a prophet of God, but yet your disciples are breaking the Sabbath or making food for themselves on the Sabbath, right? That's another tradition, a modern tradition in their days, right? And Christ responds with, well, the Levites themselves work in the temple on a Sabbath and are held guiltless. So God knows it's the seventh day. The Levites were required to go do their officiating duties in the temple on that day to receive people who come to the temple with their offerings on that day. So the Levites, that is their job. They were required to work on that day, but they're considered guiltless in their quote unquote breaking the Sabbath because it was also commanded by God. So like there's a top layer of instruction. Take a day off once a week on the seventh day, just like God sanctified in Genesis 2 when he made everything. That's a day of rest. Just chill. It's good for your health. It's good for your community. Focus on God, gets you reset. But there will be life circumstances that come in the way. Donkey falls in a ditch and you get him out on the Sabbath. It's okay to save a life on the Sabbath. You know what I'm saying? In the middle of winter here in Wyoming, when it's -30, I'm not going to turn the power off in someone's house on the Sabbath because, you know what I'm saying? I'd be killing somebody, right?
Right.
So there's these practical concepts of society that has to be, and this is what the ancient elders of Israel would have adjudicated, right? The practicalities of the Sabbath. So this is why in Numbers, when the guy was found picking up sticks on the Sabbath, they had to actually get together and confer what to do about him. They just didn't immediately stone him.
Right,
So
right.
They had to infer his intent. And then they determined that his intent was to rebel against God and against the covenant and to, what they called a high hand, right? So it wasn't just like he was accidentally going out and picking up sticks. No, he was intentionally rebelling, just like there were so many of them in the wilderness that intentionally rebelled against God. They're just, I'm not saying I'm more pious than the people in the Old Testament. I'm just saying it's amazing to me that you would see all those miraculous signs and wonders and then still just like a few weeks later be like, you know what? No,
Yeah.
no, I'm going back.
Screw you.
It's like,
Yeah.
what? Like you still
Yeah.
got this angel hovering above you in a cloud by day, fire by night. He's still there. And you're somehow going, nah, you know what? No. Like it also just makes me think like they saw so many supernatural things that didn't impress upon them enough.
Yeah.
Because if you understand that ancient Egypt dealt in lots of magic.
Yeah, I mean, this is why the angels are judged more harshly than human beings because they are so much closer to it than we are. So like you have less excuse. So yeah, the they were walking through Egypt. They're like, dude, we parted the Red Sea and then like drowned your enemies, and you're still like, I don't know.
I kind of want to
What's wrong with you guys?
I kind of want to schizo speculate on something where it's like, you know how we keep. There was a long time ago where we said, obviously, aliens are part of this big psychological operation, and whatever they say they are, they're not.
Talk.
Well, it's just interesting because there was a time like in the 90s where you're like, oh, if aliens ever showed up, the entire world would stop, and we'd be like, what? And now we live in an era where like they keep peppering us with like low grade, alien disclosure, and nobody is moved by it. And it's like, I wonder if they're getting ready, like whatever if it's Revelation and the beasts of the earth come up or something like that. And it's like, they want us to get back to the point where we're so inundated by supernatural phenomenon that we stop caring. We're like, we still have to go
there.
In this economy, I still have to go work at Target. It has to, I can't stop what I'm doing just because there is.
This is even more schizo speculation, but like,
please.
The Therion, that's like a classification of furry.
Oh,
and
yeah.
That also means like beast of the earth. This also calls back to Aleister Crowley, but it's a normalization. It's a slow, steady. Like I'm used to seeing, animal creatures.
What he's talking about is like, it's pretty remarkable. Human beings can adapt to pretty much anything. So yeah, in a time where there's angels in the clouds and all this crazy stuff is happening, you can see miracle after miracle and just be like, yeah, you know what? Never mind. I think I'm going to do the wrong thing.
I'm going to make that golden cow.
Human beings are remarkable.
This is kind of a deep cut. I don't know if you guys remember the original Total Recall with Arnold Schwarzenegger, but like there's a scene in that movie where the cab driver who's on Mars is like ends up turning on Arnold Schwarzenegger's character when they find out like Arnold Schwarzenegger's character is the guy that's supposed to save Mars and create atmosphere and like create a whole new planet for people to live on, and right now it's being like controlled by the oligarchy of a mining company and all this kind of stuff. So when it comes out that the taxi driver turns on him, he's like, man, I got kids to feed.
Yeah,
and he's just like, so like he's, instead of having it's a beautiful new world that they can live in, he's willing to keep this oppressive, dirty, smog-ridden tunnel system of a world they have to live in, because he's got kids to feed. You know what I
That's
mean? Like,
exactly it.
he's
That's
not
exactly
really
it.
thinking big picture. He's just like, I got kids to feed.
That's the entire story of the Bible, of just humanity in general. It's like expediency. It's low
Exodus.
time preference versus high time preference. It's just continuing to choose what I can get. I mean, America is a great example of, it's like, what can I get right now?
Yeah.
Like booty, big booty. Give me the booty. And everybody,
Somebody clip that. No, but it's like, you know,
it's true. That's all we want. Like, you want the bam, bam, bam
Yeah.
in your face. There's no storing up of treasures.
but that's like, we're no different. That's human nature. It's like, liberate us from Egypt and part the sea and do all these incredible things. But that golden calf, I know we just saw that crazy crap, but that golden calf is looking
the
mighty
thing
good
is,
right now.
It was 40 days that he was on the.
It's not a long time.
40 days he was on the I forget the name of the mountain, but it's like
that Mount Sinai?
It takes time to cast that golden calf. So like they
Yeah.
already had it in their heart much earlier than 40 days.
Oh
to,
yeah.
to do
Oh,
that.
had
yeah.
the plans for it. They had to have, it's crazy. And then they had to get all the gold from all the people.
Yeah.
Yeah, they started immediately. He went up and they were like,
That's crazy. That's crazy. But you know,
Like, it's
sometimes
like,
I
well,
look at
Daddy's
that.
gone.
I will judge that, and I'll go, these people, what are we doing here? But it's the same. We're the same. It's the same thing.
yeah,
you know, it
I'm
really
not.
is.
I'm no better.
So I wanted to bring this conversation to, and by the way, just to comment on your observance of the Sabbath, makes a lot of sense.
It does. I think
It tracks.
I think we should take, like, we were doing the Bible study with Matt on Saturday, but it's like that's like family time.
Well, that's
as
interesting because we are focusing on God.
Yeah.
It's specifically a Bible study. I don't know how that would fall into things.
No, I just mean, like, we can't do it Saturday. It's just like, I want that day for rest with the family. Like, that's what that time's for.
Here's the biggest thing you're going to run to when this conversation comes up, especially with people who haven't researched it, because, you know, we're all taught traditional concepts growing up in modern church. And so some of them we don't question, right? We talked about some of them in our first video together last week. With the Sabbath topic, some people are gentle about it, and because they haven't researched it, and others have researched it in a negative way where they just side with church fathers from like the 3rd and 4th century, and they just immediately fall into the rhetoric of, so you want to Judaize, do you? And you're like, wait a minute. Judaizers had a definition in the 1st century. Those were people that were ignoring the commandments of God in favor of their Judaizing, in favor of their traditions, in favor of their extremely oppressive attempt to rule, right?
Mm-hmm.
Whereas Christ came along doing the commandments and teaching the commandments. And that's why they were upset with him, because he was actually teaching the commandments. You guys remember in Matthew 5, where he's like, you heard it say that, where he says in Matthew 5, talking about they've, you know, men are putting away their wives, and then their wives are being made adulterous when they want to remarry. Right, because it was a custom. It wasn't a custom. It was a bad trait that was happening in the 1st century, where the religious leaders, Pharisees, Sadducees, scribes, and chief priests, were allowing the men of Israel in that day to put away women without divorcing them. So, like, if they were displeased, this is still a law today, by the way, in Israel. So, like, this is still a problem, guys.
Mm-hmm.
So this is a situation where the men could put away a wife without a legitimate reason and without divorcing her officially. So then she's left without recourse, because in the ancient days, you know, they didn't have an egalitarian type society. So it was a little bit more difficult for women to get a regular job. They could get a job, but what most women tried to do is just find another man to be with so they could be provided for and protected. Because if you didn't have men in your life back then, you were very vulnerable to all types of things, right?
Mm-hmm.
So these women, then Jesus is talking about, so now you've made these women adulterers, because they're going to go out without officially being divorced and try to find a new man, because they need someone, right? Because the husband has acted unjustly and unrighteously towards them. So whereas Jesus said, but did not Moses give you a certificate of divorce? So he's calling people back to, hey, wait a minute. This is an easy answer. We've already got this recourse within the law. You can get divorced. There is a certificate that can be written. But what they were doing was skipping that process and just putting these women at a severe disadvantage. And the leaders of the society were not calling these men out for this bad behavior. and it was just running rampant. So you had injustice happening, right? So that's just one example of like when you hear Jesus talking about, you've heard it said, but I tell you, Jesus is telling them the actual commandments of God, not what they've heard said from the corrupt, whitewashed tombs, liars, thieves, those Pharisees who are corrupt. So
Right.
this is what you're going to run into. This is what I ran into when I first started asking questions about this. Was, wait a minute, why does it say this is eternal? Why do I see the apostles after Christ died and resurrected? They're still keeping the Sabbath. Paul literally in 1 Corinthians 5:7 is telling people to continue to keep Passover. That's it's called a Sabbath as well. It's called an eternal ordinance. Did you guys know that they had to vote at the Council of Nicaea on changing the Passover observance?
No.
Because there was too many Christians still keeping it in accordance with the.
So how does we'll move on after this, but how does it end up Sunday? Like, how does it end up push one more day?
They chose, it was the leadership at the time, they chose to designate because they didn't want to. So look, I understand these early Christians, it's not black and white. Okay. It's very, very gross history between both the Jewish people and the early Christians. The early Christians were being persecuted by both Rome and the early Christians were kicked out of the synagogues because they believed in Christ. So they were being persecuted by the Jewish leaders and then the Romans, right? And then Jewish people were being persecuted by the Romans as well at certain points after the rebellions and after the dispersion of the temple and everything. So there was an animosity between the Jewish people and early Christians. And this is what created a lot of friction. And so it continued to increase by the time of the 3rd century. Council of Nicaea, you had many of the bishops at the time saying that we don't want anything to do with the practices of the Jewish people. And that they started to make their own practices.
Okay.
Now, that doesn't mean that they were right about to have that attitude and to look, I get it. Jewish people, if they were claiming we have the law, we're bastions of the law, but then they're doing it poorly and acting like jerks about it. That's not a good representation, right?
Well, it's nothing new under the sun, right? This is what
yes.
I feel like this is what I know you're not on Twitter, but like like we've been fighting this weird battle with the anti-Semitism and all that. And in the end, you just end up getting people who are like, F these guys, screw these guys. And I'm like, yeah, but like you're taking it a little too far. And the explanation, the logical conclusion for everyone is like, well, then reject all this. And I'm like,
baby with the bathwater kind of a situation.
Yeah, I'm like, I don't think that that's right, but I understand the inclination, right? Because it's just annoying.
Like in the 15th century, one of the popes was saying you should never take any medicine from a Jewish person. And you're like, wait, what?
You know how many doctors are like so many Jewish doctors right now, dude. That's crazy.
Because there was a, at the time there was a community of Jewish people not following God's law, but engaging in their own witchcraft and different types of things they were doing, paganism, to which they were doing sorcery and spells. And they were, just like any person from any race can either walk with God or they can engage in the sorcery of the nations. Right. So but at the time that focus from this Pope was, because that we know about these in our area that are delving in magic and witchcraft, I don't trust any medicine you can give from them. Never take medicine from a Jew. They don't explain, never take medicine from a Jew who's practicing witchcraft. They just make the edict, don't take medicine from a Jew. You see what I'm saying? So it gets really muddy throughout history. There's not a lot of nuance sometimes, and it just causes this division. And I think Satan really loves that. I think he loves that we start hating on each other, creating division. To me, like we talk about this in our Rescuing Babylon series, that the tenets of communism is the core governance of ancient Babylon, which they maintained at the Tower of Babel. It's how they incited people to rebel against God and to essentially be the first example of worshiping the state, right? And this is what Josephus talks about in his, Antiquity about the motivations of the people at the Tower of Babel. And he's explaining communism without that language, obviously, but he's explaining communism. And it's always to segment and to divide, get people fighting with each other, get people to hate God, put dependency on the state. It's building a collectivistic authoritarian control. And so this is where that he loves it when Christians fight with each other, right? We cannibalize each other from within. And then also we cannibalize other people groups and demonize them. And it just pushes people further away from God. It becomes stumbling blocks. And so this is where, when I started looking at this, I was going to a Methodist church, they don't keep the Sabbath. They think that we're, into the law of Christ, which is funny to me because I'm sitting there going like, wait a minute. So when I actually started researching Christ, who is a prophet of God, the Son of God, he says he only does and says what his Father does and says. And then John 7:16, that his doctrine is his Father's doctrine. And he says in John 15:8-11, that he did his Father's commandments, and that's how he had his joy, and he hopes that our joy would be full. And then he says in Matthew 19:16, if you want eternal life, keep the commandments of God. And then his disciple John in 1 John chapter 5 says, if you want to love God and love people, you must keep God's commandments. And so when I read these things and I say, well, what are God's commandments? And I go to my pastor, because I used to be that, I jokingly call myself a word nerd. So like I would be studying the Bible in between church services, right? I would study it every day. And so like I would go and make appointments with pastors in between the services in their office hours and try to ask them questions. I would ask them about the Nephilim and the days of Noah, and I would ask them about Deuteronomy 3 and the giants, and many of them had no answers, right?
Yeah, that's what I'm expecting. Yeah.
But then I also started asking them about stuff like this, right? So like, what does this mean? Like I know that our church here says we're supposed to keep the 10 commandments, but why do we leave out the fourth one? Like, what's going on there, right? And I'm not a Seventh-day Adventist, right? It's just a logical question. And they'll say, oh, well, now we do the Sabbath. The Sabbath has been changed now. It's been like, now we observe the Sabbath because we rest in Christ every day. And I'm like, but wait a minute, that not only does it never say that anywhere in the Bible that this big change has happened, but it also, that's not even the commandment for keeping the Sabbath. You can't set apart one day as sanctified and holy every day. Because it says God hallowed one day out of the week to be sanctified for rest, not every day. Paul even says in Thessalonians, a man is not working 6 days a week is a reprobate. Like there's 6 days for, even in the command in Exodus 20, it says there's 6 days for working, but on the Sabbath we take a day off. So it's like, okay, so how am I just pretending that I'm resting all of the days when I'm not? I'm going to work. Right. You know what I mean? Like, right. I'm not resting. I'm not doing the actual, but they're like, oh, you just rest in Christ because you obey Christ. I'm like, but Christ said to obey these commandments. So how, this is contradictory logic, sir. You know, and some of them were just like, yeah, it's something to consider, but you know, they always have to fall back in the official doctrine of their denomination because it's how they get paid. I mean, it's their job. You know what I mean? They're employed. I'm not saying those men are not genuine men who want to know truth in their life. I'm just saying there does come a pressure point where they have to decide, you know, I'm going to get kicked out of my denomination. I'm going to, you know, I'm going to lose my income. Or do I stir the waters and start talking about this issue and go through the same demonization you see other Christians go through, which is suddenly you're called a Judaizer. And I'm like, bro, my Messiah was from the lion of the tribe of Judah. So for one, Judaizing was absconding the commandments in favor of new traditions and added traditions. But my Messiah from the tribe of Judah said, keeping the commandments of God is how I disciple after him. And the Old Testament says that that's the epitome of wisdom. It's literally how we're strong and courageous. Joshua chapter 1, verse 8 and 9. It is like, why would I not? Like the greatest patriarchs in all the Bible kept the commandments and were honored by God. Like, how could I suddenly go? How can all that suddenly change? And if it did change, where's the new list? Where's the new, you know, Mount Sinai moment of here are these commandments you should keep for righteousness? There is none. Right. It's all the same.
Can I ask you a question, Sean?
Yeah, sure.
It's just your personal opinion. Like, cause I sympathize with what's going on with those Christian pastors because they're given an option, and the option they have to weigh that. Do you think that by ignoring the minutia that you are like constantly looking at, do you think that it's beneficial for, I don't know how to phrase this question. Like, do you think that they are doing more harm than good by ignoring that and just saying like, hey, listen, because like I'm going to go after and try to help these people and I'm in a position to help more people. But by ignoring some of this stuff, like, do you think that it really cascades down where they're missing something huge?
It yes and no, and I hate to you know run the fence like that because the answer requires context, situational context, right? The answer requires situational context. So like what I noticed a lot of times growing up in church, because I went to church all my life, guys. My dad was a pastor for many years, and then he went off to do his own ministry where he has orphanages in different countries, and so he stopped pastoring. But I continued to go to church all my life, and I just was I would always try to talk to people in church about the Bible, and nobody knew the Bible. And I started to realize in my mid-20s, this is a problem. Like, we go to church, we hang out, we have a good time. I'm part of the youth group, the men's group, all that kind of stuff. We, after church, we go to Applebee's or Chili's or whatever, and we're talking about the football game. We're talking about, where we're going to go camping, or, when we're going to get together and grill out. But nobody can talk about the Bible. Nobody can even hold a general conversation about the Bible. And to me, this is like a big problem. Like, we're supposed to be studied and approved in the word, as scripture tells us. We're supposed to actually be learning this thing for our sanctification, as Paul teaches Timothy in 1 Timothy chapter 4. He talks about, these are the scriptures that you've had since your youth that will make you wise for salvation. And I'm like, okay, so I think I need to read this stuff and know it. You know what I mean? Like, it seems to be the I was always told by youth pastors, like, the Bible's your manual. It's like your driver's manual for life. You know what I mean? It's like the so I thought, I kind of took that seriously, and I was like, all right, so maybe I need to read and know this book, and because I didn't know how to live life. I was horrible at it. I was getting people mad at me all the time. I didn't know how to handle relationships. I didn't know how to handle weird circumstances, trauma. I didn't know how to handle life at all. And so my thought was, well, if this book does have wisdom to handle life, then I should get to know it. And the more that I studied it, the more I realized people were not studying it around me at church, right? Where you would expect them, since we're reading from this book every Sunday and we're given all these wonderful anecdotal stories from the pulpit about this book, then people are surely reading it at home, right?
Yeah.
No. And so it got really awkward. And that's where I started making these appointments with pastors to ask them more specific questions and kind of dig in, because just trying to have general conversation with fellow church goers wasn't working. And so as a result, I feel like the yes and the no to your question is, it causes more harm, yes, for those who want to know a actual definition of discipleship. So if you're reading, we're told, be like Jesus, right? What would Jesus do? Like, we're told this is like the most general platitude in Christianity. Be like Jesus. And then you start reading about Jesus's life and you're like, okay, well, there's no standing temple, so I can't do that. I don't live in ancient Judea. I don't have to deal with Pharisees, so I don't have to come up with a rebuttal similar to that. So then what can I do to emulate him in his life outside of the persecution he received that I don't receive here in the United States, where, it's a tame society and Christians aren't generally being persecuted. I don't have my own band of disciples that I'm training up, so I can't emulate that. Like, so you start going through the life of Christ and you're like, what can I actually do to emulate Christ? And then I started looking at what he was actually teaching. But I'm not someone that just reads the New Testament. I was also reading the front of the book too. And I started realizing that what he was teaching is just from the Old Testament. Because, I learned that the books of the New Testament weren't written until after Christ died and resurrected and ascended to heaven. So, like, he wasn't teaching in Matthew 5 in the Sermon on the Mount, or the Beatitudes and that whole famous sermon there. He wasn't teaching them from the book of Galatians. Galatians wasn't written till approximately, AD 61 or 2. Like, he was he was teaching them from the law and the prophets. And he was saying, these are the scriptures. This is the word of God. We live by every word from the mouth of God. And I'm sitting there going, oh, wow. So I need to start at the front of the book. Like, that seems to be where a lot of his grounding was for his understanding. And he quoted a lot from Isaiah and Deuteronomy. And I thought, okay, so I'm going to start with those two books. And Isaiah is probably one of my favorite books in the Bible at this point, because it has so much future eschatology. It has people being, the rebellious priests and leaders in the days of Isaiah being rebuked for abandoning the covenant of God and the laws of God, and then engaging in Baal worship, which led them to eventually cannibalizing themselves. Like, they just went into the spiral, of absolute depravity and destruction because they abandoned the laws of God. And then Isaiah talks about, if there is not, I think it's chapter 18. It says, if it's not according to, or it's actually chapter 8, if it's not according to the law and the prophets, it's not true. And this is God speaking to Isaiah. And so I thought to myself, all right, well, it seems like if God spoke something initially, is that are those words everlasting?
Yeah.
So I had to come to the conclusion, yes, because I kept seeing Isaiah prophesying that in the future, all nations will be required to learn God's wisdom, right? And it's not burdensome, as Jesus talked about. It's not burdensome. What's burdensome was when men get in the way and start adding extra rules to it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so what a lot of people don't realize is that if you're going to a church looking for instruction and discipleship because you need structure in your life, you're going to, it depends on the church you go to, but in my experience, many of the churches were so focused on being overly welcoming that there was, and also it probably had to do with their denominational teachings, but there was no strict concept of here's what we do as disciples of Christ. So you have young men and women left without an actual like focused vision for what they're supposed to be doing. It just becomes, oh, keep coming back. We want to see you here next week. And yeah, we got this youth social happening. We're going to go bowling. And yeah, man, come on back. Yeah, we're going to look about this little, we're going to start this new study from this workbook that we got on the book of Philippians. And it's going to be great, man. Come on back. We'll see you on Tuesday. And you're just like, that's great, man. I love being welcomed and I love having fellowship, but it's like, I wasn't getting like the actual instructions for, oh, I'm on a date and this girl's got a low cut shirt on and she's throwing me all the signals and she wants to go back to my place. What do I do?
Right.
What do I do?
What do I do? Right. Right.
I'm actually gonna we'll move on to what we came here to talk about, but this graphic kind of reminds me
fascinating.
of, it's just like continuity within the Bible and the cross references. 340,000 cross references from old to new, so it's pretty fantastic how that works out.
We're 41 minutes in, so before we go to the next part of the conversation, we do have to go to Patreon, but I want to address one comment before we leave YouTube. This comes from Fiv, where he says the Bible is allegory. The eyes to see and ears to hear is referencing to picking up the allegory in the Bible. Everyone takes it literally. I used to be of that mind.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
Well, still am. But then I realized that, because Jordan Peterson did a really excellent job of kind of showing the Bible to people who were dismissive of it initially. But the thing that he did was he stripped all the history out of it, and he stripped it, certainly the supernatural out of it. But he did pin one element, and it is this how to live sort of an aspect that I think he did kind of a good job. And then I realized that Jordan Peterson is an insane man who's addicted to benzos and is
the first episode we ever did on this show, before it was even named this show, we had somebody on and he was talking about astrology and the Bible and how the Bible was basically modeled after different stars and how it echoes this. And I'm like, so the Bible is astrological.
It's many things.
It's allegorical. It's historical. It's realistic. It's all of these things all at once. And when you read it and understand that, like not until I was like 30 that I was able to come back and kind of look at this thing again and go, oh, what an idiot I was. I thought these were just stories on how to live. But
what really broke the seal for me on that was like, everybody raises their fist, and we talked about this quite a lot in the last episode, Sean, but this idea of like the God of the Old Testament and how could he have, sort of called for the things that he called for, wiping out entire civilizations and, women and children and even their animals and all this stuff. And then once you understand this idea of like genetic manipulation, you understand the offspring of fallen angels, and the attempt at corrupting human being on a genetic level. Then all of it starts to make sense, and you go, wait a second, let me look at this again, because I didn't have that context. It's all about context. Once you have these things to plug in and look through, then all of a sudden the Old Testament makes a lot more sense, and everything starts to make a lot more sense. But kind of to the conversation that we're having here, Sean, the church in its modern day form has removed a lot of really important elements from the discussion. And much like Sean bringing these questions to his pastors, a lot of these people that are in the positions of authority within the church don't have the ability to answer these hard questions. And that leaves people lost in the sauce. And so I would say to that person, and Viv, I'm not making fun of you. I mean, I made fun of Jordan Peterson a little bit, but I was not a Christian my entire life. And now that I'm 35 years old, I have been one now for, I guess, what has been 4 years. Before that, I was a skeptic and a conspiracy theorist. And if you asked me 10 years ago, is the Bible true or is it allegory? I would have been wrong, and I would have told you that it is allegory. And it is possibly potentially God is real, but the Bible might be something that is potent and is weaponized against the people to control them one way or another. But now I'm realizing, the word of God is potent, and if you can co-opt that in some way, shape, or form, you can control people. Only something that potent could be as long lasting as it has been, and as constantly attempted to be twisted and to sort of leverage people one way or another. So, but with that being said, we're at the 45-minute mark. The pores have gotten far too much content. If you want to watch this episode, it's going to drop in its entirety in about a week. Otherwise, patreon.com/Nephilim Death Squad is where you want to be. And there's a bunch of perks, including the rest of this episode, waiting there for you. So Sean, we set out to talk about something, and that something is this idea of like AI and where we're going with AI. And I know we talked about automatons, and in the previous episode we mentioned golems and things like that. And I told you, a little bit of what I think is going on with Elon Musk's AI. It's a conversation I'm really eager to get into. Where do you want to start on this topic?
We can start with Zeus's AI automaton.
Whoa, okay. All right.
Okay, then.
There we go. This is something that we talked about a little bit last time, right? It's the same thing that's akin to the destroyer that Odin has in one of these days. I'm going to remember the name of where the hell Odin lives.
Valhalla.
Asgard.
Yeah.
Valhalla is where they go when they die. Asgard. Good job, Top. He's got an automaton there as well, and these characters seem to be interchangeable. So let her rip.
Yeah. It's I think I put the slides there in the studio.
Oh, okay. Here we go. 1 second. Sorry. Boom. I'm going to fire the producer. All right. Perfect.
Unbelievable.
So even though this image is from a movie from the 1960s, it is Jason and the Argonauts was based upon this Greek myth about Talos. Talos is the large robot, the giant robot automaton that Zeus made. He commissioned. Hephaestus actually made it, his engineer. But it was owned by Zeus because it patrolled this flying piece of land, and it flew itself. And so in Greek mythology, Talos was this massive automaton and made of bronze, and it was to protect Europa and Crete from pirates and invaders. He encircled the island shores 3 times daily, and he was said to be programmed with the knowledge of the gods. So that seems to be like a bigger level of knowledge than the average person, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so there was actually coins that venerated Talos in the ancient world, in ancient Greece, specifically here in Crete. The silver drachma was about the winged Talos. But then you had people writing history, writing about this event. Now, here's the crazy part, that in modernity, Greek mythology is considered not history by Western scholars. But by Greeks, they consider it their history. So they don't think that this is just fun legends like comic book stories. They don't think these are Marvel movies. They think this has actually happened. Like if you even in today, if in modern day Greek, you go into Greece today, the average person will tell you, "Oh no, I know you guys call those legends and myths, but like we believe those are actual history."
Oh yeah, I'm aware.
Which is a wild paradigm, right? So what they used to think about the sacred mount where Zeus lived was that they believed it was a temperate climate all year round, mountain gorges, lustrous forests. The gods did not always reside in their paradise, however, but they would depart and return there via a gate of clouds guarded by the Horae, the goddesses of the seasons. So right off the bat, this description of where this supposed council of gods resided from time to time is insane.
Not on this show.
But I do, it is a wild description. Yeah.
He said it and we're like, yep.
Gates of clouds guarded by the Horae, the goddesses of the seasons.
Yeah. So, and mountain gorges with lush forests, temperate climate all year round. That's not the peaks of mountains in Greece.
Right.
So authors claim that the tables in Zeus's palace on Olympus were made of gold and were actually automatons created by Hephaestus. They moved in and out of the rooms as required by the gods. Zeus's throne was situated in the Pantheon meeting hall of the gods. It was also designed by Hephaestus and was constructed with black marble laid with gold. Each of the gods had their own palace on the mountain, usually constructed of gold and marble and situated in a gorge in the mountain peaks.
By the way, worth mentioning that we have had people on this show who have had bizarre dreams, interactions with all kinds of entities, and Colin in particular was brought to a place that was made of marble with veins of gold stretching through it.
Yeah, specifically, he said the sky was like that.
The sky was marble with
Yeah,
gold.
which
Yeah,
makes me feel like he was underground. Maybe I don't
who
know.
knows, but very, very fascinating that element should pop up again.
Interesting. So the gods met daily at Zeus's palace in this pantheon, held feasts and discussed the fate of the mortals. They drank nectar and ate ambrosia, which perpetuated their mortality. Allegedly, when the gods drank ambrosia, the blood in their veins was replaced by ichor, a substance toxic to humans. So essentially, they're not immortal because they have to drink something to maintain a sense of immortality.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So this is what I
Yeah.
was saying in the first time we talked about the difference in the ontologies of this world, where angelic beings are spiritual beings and their bodies are designed to live forever. That's why Satan, the other rebellious angels, as well as the first and second beast, they're thrown in the lake of fire to be killed and destroyed because they have a different type of body that is a little different. And this it's not the normal flesh that just decays over time and needs to be recharged with some sort of elixir to keep you going longer, right?
So your thinking here is that the pantheon was, I mean, Zeus being
I'm sorry, I got a question after this too. Go ahead.
Zeus being Satan, right? Yes.
Yeah, Zeus
And
being
then-
the only one with an actual immortal body, but the demigods were being,
That's interesting.
genetically modified Nephilim of different various kinds. Yeah.
That actually is fascinating because in my research, Zeus is the number one that I can find and track through different mythologies. But I haven't really found that. I mean, maybe if I looked, but I haven't really found that much with the rest of the pantheon. But this is the first time I'm considering that the rest of the pantheon was actually demigods, actually Nephilim, who he's figured out how to prolong their mortal bodies through, ambrosia and things like that. And that he's the only one that is, because the rest of them are in the lake of fire. That's interesting.
What would you? I don't know if this even makes sense, but when God curses the serpent, which is Satan in the garden, he says you'll crawl on your belly and you'll eat dirt. And dirt, I suppose that means like the flesh of humans, because this is what Adam is made out of. And I don't know, just my brain when I'm thinking about it, it's if you're cursed to eat dirt, that means that you have to. You have to. So, like, in order to what? To sustain yourself or to continue on? Like, this is a curse. Where do you put that as far as his body being immortal in that way?
Well, I don't. So when I take the ancient Israelite literature of First Enoch and Jubilees and how it describes the events of the Garden of Eden, it seems to be because they have a continuity within their testimonies. And so it seems to be that the serpent was an actual serpent who was influenced by the angel that we would reference as Satan. So the serpent, that's why and I grant you that the language in Genesis 3 gets difficult because it talks about the serpent being cursed. And then it talks about the woman, and how she's, the serpent will bruise her heel, but she'll not just crush his head. And so then you think, all right, there seems to be some prophetic metaphor here, but then there also seems to be like the serpent's literally going to crawl in the dust of the earth as if he didn't previously, as if he had arms and legs previously or something, could stand or something. So there's a lot there. And it seems to be that from those two books and how they speak on this issue as well with extra detail, Gadriel is another name for Satan. Just Satan has a lot of names in scripture. So he's referenced as the dragon, the accuser of the brethren, the murderer from the beginning. He's referenced as Azazel. He's referenced as Gadriel. He's referenced as Mastema. And so he has many different names in scripture. First Enoch 69 references is Gadriel is the one that was in the garden tempting Eve. And then we also see other places saying it was actually Satan, the dragon from the beginning, tempting Eve, and how he was slightly different in his subtlety and his intellect and basically his transgressions than all the other rebellious angels under Samyaza's rule. And so this is where we're trying to actually demonstrate this in our little Days of Noah series, because I'm portraying the fallen angels interacting on the earth, right? And so like I have Azazel with Samyaza and Terrell, and they don't really trust him, because he's kind of a wild. They don't understand him, right? So like we try to actually portray this type of thing that I see being discussed in First Enoch and Jubilees about the original Satan who influenced the actual animal. So what Jubilee says is when Adam and Eve were kicked out of the garden, all the animals, their mouths were closed and they can no longer speak.
Yeah.
So you remember in the book of Numbers where Balaam's donkey starts talking to him?
Yeah.
You remember, because there's that angel in the road, and that angel's going to kill him if he keeps going down that road, and the donkey's trying to turn to the side and move out of the way. And Balaam's just like, "What are you doing, donkey?" He starts hitting his donkey. And then it says that God opened the mouth of the donkey, and the donkey spoke to Balaam and said, "Why are you hitting me? Have I not been your donkey all these years?" Like, what?
That's the best book in the world.
What are we saying? Like that. So not only does the donkey show cognizant awareness that he's been this Balaam's donkey all this time, and he's been a good donkey for him, and he knows his role, and he's been like, and he's trying to save him from getting killed because Balaam is going to curse Israel, and the donkey is afraid of this angel that's about to strike at him. And so the donkey's actually saving Balaam, and Balaam doesn't realize it until God opens Balaam's eyes to see the angel on the road. But so no one ever asks in church, wait a minute, how can donkeys talk the language of whatever Balaam spoke, whether it's Akkadian or ancient, Chalcedon, like Babylonian, like whatever, Mesopotamian, whatever he spoke, or what's going on here? Like, is just one of these miracles that nobody can explain? No, actually, it's already been introduced to us in Jubilees. Now, I know I may have mentioned this book a couple times in our first encounter, but a lot of people don't know the history of the Book of Jubilees. We've gone into great depth to show people the manuscript history and how the churches, like, not only is it actually in the canon of the Ethiopians, but it was called the Apocalypse of Moses, and it was considered a well-established book of the Israelite literature they considered sacred writings. So much so that you have people quoting from it in the 2nd, 3rd century, church fathers. You also have a Greek historian in the 8th century AD, using information solely from Jubilees to create his world history. So, like, it was a well-established concept that, and by the way, and it was about the giants.
Yeah.
It's like a well-documented thing. In fact, it wasn't until after the Council of Trent, till one of the popes, I think it was Pope Gregory the 13th, he decided to create a list of banned books in which he included the Apocalypse of Moses, the Book of Jubilees, in those banned books, and told Christians to stop reading it. Right. So this is where it's an incredible book. It's like there's nothing in it that disagrees with anything in the Old and New Testament. It's got prophecies of the millennial reign. It's got all this wonderful information about the patriarchs that it used to be called the Lesser Genesis or Little Genesis, because it had more little details than the actual book of Genesis. Not because it was less in authority and weight or whatever. It had actually more description of little details, and so they called it the Little Genesis. And it does cover generally that same time span from the creation up until the days of the Exodus, very similar to the book of Genesis. But it actually talks about all the animals could speak with one tongue, and with Adam and Eve in the garden. But because of what the snake did, being influenced into doing this, and when Adam and Eve got kicked out and all the animals got kicked out of the garden, they all lost their ability to speak with mankind. So this is why, have you ever wondered why animals know your language? Like they know.
Yeah, dude, I was gonna bring that up, but I felt so stupid.
What's his name? Rupert.
I'm so glad somebody smart brought that up.
Sheldrake.
Rupert Sheldrake has some interesting studies on that. Yeah, this idea that there seems to be like a telepathic communication on some level with house pets, to the degree that they know when you're going to come home, even if you change the variable. Like, let's say you come home every day at 5 p.m. and you would assume the animals get used to that. Change that variable up, and still they'll be able to observe through a camera that about 15 minutes before you arrive, even if it's varied, the animal will still get up, suddenly get restless, go to the windows and things like that. And he was able to demonstrate that with some success. But there is this other phenomenon where, like, people will talk to a dog and the dog won't respond, and then they'll talk to a dog in Spanish, like if it's from a Spanish household, and it'll know. And it's like it far exceeds tone of voice, because a lot of people are like, what animals are picking up on is your inflection and your tone. You want to go outside, and it's like there's an excitement, inquisitive kind of a thing, and the dog's picking up on that. And then it's like sometimes it seems to go beyond that. There's even that one instance of that dog that has all those buttons laid out on the ground, and the buttons, there's like 30 different buttons, and they all have different words that they're associated with. Yep. And this dog will slap those buttons in full sentences, like something's in the backyard. And like, and then the dog like goes to the backyard, like he's like excited about like something's back there, you know, and he let it out. There's like a small animal or whatever, but I think it's a poodle, which poodles are known for their intelligence. It was actually a military breed, I think. But yeah, so I was gonna bring that up, but I was like, that can't. That's even for me that sound. And I say a lot of silly things, but I like that one. I like that one. There seems to be something there in my opinion.
Yeah, I'm gonna steal this joke from a comedian, but there's a there's a comedian who has a bit on this, and he's like, what do you think a Mexican dog sounds like? They're like, hey, bark, bark, hey. And he's like, what do you think a Chinese dog sounds like? And they're like, help, 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 help.
That's a banger. I wonder who said that.
It's true. Yeah, I mean, even Spanish people think dogs sound like when the dog barks, they go yip yip yip.
Yeah,
it's like,
dude.
like that noise. I don't know what you're talking about, dude.
There was a dog that I saw recently. It was going viral on TikTok, and like let's say it was like Russian or something like that, and this damn dog.
Barking in Russian.
And it was like a husky. You know, huskies are particularly vocal. They have a lot of vocal range. And I'm like, it was Italian. And it had an Italian accent. And it was like, there was no way around it. I was floored. So yeah, it's like I'm continuously seeing, especially with dogs, they do amazing things. I've been thinking about that recently. I know this is going to sound crazy, but like the power of the spoken word and the ability to prophesy and things like that. And like animals don't have that ability. But what is happening with dogs? and like when they go like, I love you. And you're like, that dog just said, I love you.
What does this tie in at all with like the millennial reign where the animals will not eat each other?
Inside the kingdom of God, on his holy mountain, is Isaiah 11. Nothing will hurt or harm on my holy mountain. So that's the New Jerusalem. So inside the kingdom of God, we will not see the normal jungle cycle, right, of eat or be eaten. But I think outside you still will have normal zoology, if you will. But inside it's a place of peace, and so that's why the lion will eat straw and that kind of stuff. The baby can play near the adder hole, that kind of thing, because it's the kingdom of God. And so that's what Jubilees even talks about. I think it's chapter 19 where it talks about after the sanctuary and the tabernacle of God descends to the earth, after the millennial reign, then the whole earth is going to become like the kingdom of God. So there's a intermediate time, which is that 1,000 years, where the resurrected saints of God under Christ's authority are rule and reign over the nations to create peace on the earth for 1,000 years, so that people can learn the ways of God, which is how you get salvation. So it's like, I think that in 1 Peter, where it talks about the Lord is not slow in his coming, but he's patient, not wishing that any should perish, but that as many as possible should come to salvation. And that's what the millennial reign is. It's 1,000 years where Satan's locked in a hole, unclean spirits are already destroyed in the lake of fire. There's no antagonists. God is actually on the earth. His son is reigning and teaching people how to live properly with wisdom, settling disputes among them, as Isaiah 2:4 talks about. And people can actually there's no sickness, no disease. You get medicine from the trees of life, as Ezekiel 47:12 and Revelation 22:5 say, for the nations. So you get free healthcare, basically. You got free fruit and water from the New Jerusalem. You get the water of life flowing out from the New Jerusalem that refreshes the water courses of the earth, as Isaiah 47:12 talks about as well. And that's where it's like the people, the nations that live outside of the New Jerusalem for 1,000 years are going to experience life like we've never known before. And it's the ultimate like missions ground. It's the ultimate place where, think about, no war, no disease, no famine. The population rate is going to be out of control. And everybody's being taught the ways of God, how to love God. They can actually go see Christ in the city. So like, imagine, and there's no Satan running around trying to deceive people and tempt people. There's no unclean spirits trying to infest people. Like, it's going to be the biggest harvest of souls at the end of the millennial reign that could ever imagine. So I always joke, like, I always say, I know that Jesus describes like the narrow and the wide gate and the narrow road kind of concept. But I think at the end of the story, after the millennial reign, God is going to win the numbers game.
Mm-hmm.
He's going to have more family members than will have to be destroyed because of rebellion. So he's going to, because there's just going to be unfettered 1,000 years of him and his son being on the earth, helping people live according to their wisdom, and no killing, no trafficking. That's what I'm not really blaming that previous comp that we got from whatever that guy's name was, Fiv or whatever. But the people that it's kind of a new age mentality where people say, oh, the Bible's allegory. It's just a bunch of allegory. You can interpret it however you like. To me, that type of hermeneutic is like an etch-a-sketch. It's like 5 minutes later, they're going to shake it up and just redraw the lines because they don't have any concrete hermeneutic to stand on because they're not defining terms. They're not placing events and people and places in history. It's just simply, oh, I don't understand that. So it must be allegorical. And I'm going to make up a meaning for it. Right. Your brain is an etch-a-sketch. Like slow down, define the terms. Look, there's a ton of archaeological history out there that validates tons of stories in the Bible. Like, it's amazing. I even talked to an archaeologist in 2012 who was on an archaeological dig in northern Israel at the border of Syria in the 1970s. And he said that the Israeli army was shooting at Syrians on this side of the mountain, and they're on the crest on the other side of the mountain digging an old palace of Solomon up where he kept a bunch of his horses with the Solomon's crest on the pillars that they were digging out of the dirt.
Wow.
And you're like, that's First Kings chapter 11. Like, that's history's venerated right there. Like the Bible and all the surrounding events and details of the Bible venerated with just these men in the dirt in the 70s. But the average person doesn't care about those details because many of them still are struggling with other emotional aspects in their life, and they don't want the wisdom of God in their life.
Yeah, or they're struggling with what Western culture has done to the Bible. It's caricaturized it, and then it's created a straw man to ridicule, and it's done it quite effectively. And it's
I mean, I get it. I was there. Like, as if you're shown the proof, then you're like, well, if I'm shown, then the responsibility's on me. They don't really want that. But
I want to ask a question, and then I want to get back to this automaton thing.
Yeah.
But speaking of sort of like archaeological discoveries that give veracity to the Bible. What do you make of that? The idea that they discovered Noah's Ark on a mountain in Arafat that was recently exposed due to a mudslide where previously only some of it was there, and there was some speculation that it was Noah's Ark. And then this mudslide happened, and it reveals, the rest of the body of the ship. And it even allegedly, and I'm not there to measure it myself, but is the measurements that were described in the Bible, and that this is in fact actually Noah's Ark. It wasn't on Mount Arafat specifically; it was on a mountain in the mountain range of Arafat.
What do I think about it? I think if it has Noah's Ark, that's wonderful. I think it's extremely suspicious that a boat of that size is at the top of a mountain range.
Yeah, dude. I mean, even if it's not Noah's Ark, it certainly tells you that there was a super big flood.
Yeah, definitely. I believe in a worldwide flood. I believe the scriptures are very clear on that. In fact, what's so amazing is First Enoch, when it prophesies the flood, it describes an enclosed room with water filling it up to its roof.
Oh, that's an interesting way to describe that. Hey.
I like that.
Yeah.
All right.
But I know we're not getting into that, flat around conversation, but just food for thought. So it's an interesting idea. And I would love it to be the actual Ark of the Covenant, or excuse me, the actual Ark of Noah. That'd be amazing. I don't think there's anything, if it's not, it still is extremely peculiar that a massive vessel that size is on top of a mountain. It just makes no sense. But the engineering and the mathematics involved in the ark itself was revolutionary for shipbuilding in the 1700s, and a lot of people don't realize that, because they were trying to figure out how to create a bigger vessel for shipping cargo to the Americas. And then a guy in the 1700s looked at the dimensions given in Genesis for the ark and was like, that looks like it's like architecturally sound because of its dimensions, And so he built a ship, and lo and behold, it was more seaworthy than any other ship because it was really difficult to capsize in big waves. And so that revolutionized the cargo transport system across the Atlantic in the last 300 years based off of Noah's design.
That alone is fascinating.
Crazy, right?
Shout out to Jin too. She's a longtime supporter of the show, and so I am comfortable bringing this up. She says scientists stuck rods inside of the ark and took samples. So I imagine they're taking like cylindrical rods and they're pulling out core samples of the I guess the wood. and they found animal hair and DNA within it. That's fascinating. I mean, of course, you know, to your point, if it's not, it doesn't take away, and it certainly still speaks of some unbelievable flood. But of course, I am pulling for it to be the case. That would be huge. I just think that we're kind of in this season of revelation, and I don't necessarily mean that has to be in the sense of we are in the book of Revelation, but like this revealing, like we have this technology, and it just feels like many things are being revealed to us in this moment. And you know, maybe I'm biased because of the show that I do, but I feel like we're experiencing. I guess maybe I'll just use the term like a revitalization. I feel like more people, and it could be because we're doing this show, and so we're speaking directly to these people. But I just feel like there are so many things. We're in such a strange season that it's causing people to ask questions, and the more they ask these questions, the more that they're coming to Christ. And I
don't think so. We'll get back into the. Yeah, I think you're an idiot. No. We'll go into the slideshow now, but yeah, the more that we go like in real life, the more people we actually talk to. Yeah. And now that like because of the show, we're able to do stuff like that, and these are not people that are giving us the recency bias of the latest episode we did. They have no idea who we are, but they're talking about it. Yeah. I bought up Gibberellins to people at a coffee shop, and they were like, "What?" So they're like ready to hear it, which is interesting.
All right, so let's
we'll jump quickly into Revelation with some of these slides and these automaton ideas, because it goes into Revelation 13 very quickly. So Adrienne Myers, she's a research scholar from Stanford University. She wrote an article a while back after she was looking into syncretism, and specifically in relationship to automatons in the ancient world, because she heard the stuff I just read you about Zeus and his automaton, and she knew about all that. But then she was like, what about other cultures? So she started researching, and this is some quotes from her with some artwork from ancient India on the right-hand side. She said, my research into the first inklings of scientific impulse took me into the world of mythology, where ancient people first envisioned making artificial life, automatons, self-moving devices, and other marvelous things long before the technology made them possible. These stories about robots and other machines in ancient oral traditions were first written down in the time of Homer, around 2,700 years ago, but the Greeks were not the only people to imagine automatons and machines in antiquity. Similar stories exist in the Ramayana, the Mahabharata, and other epics. In Indian myths and Hindu myths, automatons are made by the engineer god Vishwakarma and the sorceress Maya. In Greek myths, are made by the god of technology Hephaestus and the brilliant artisan Daedalus. And so this on the right-hand side is a depiction carved into, Buddhist temples about automatons. Here's more automatons. This one actually looks like the thing from that. I can't remember the name of that show. Anyway. So Adrienne, she continues to say, I consider such myths to be the world's first science fiction stories. No single civilization had a monopoly in ancient dreams of advanced technology. Whether one looks at the Greek, Etruscan, Egyptian, Hindu, Islamic, Chinese, or other ancient cultural myth about artificial life, they all contemplate what wonders might be achieved if only one could possess the divine creativity and abilities of the gods. But it's not possible to draw a direct line of development from mythology over millennia to modern scientific knowledge. In Indian and Hellenistic cultures borrowed and influenced each other beginning in the 5th century BC, and syncretism intensified after Alexander of Macedon and King Porus began relations in the 4th century BC. So do you remember last time how we talked about the Vimanas and how I said there was a strong correlation between the Greeks, the Egyptians, the Babylonians, and the Indians? They all had Vimanas.
Yes.
And they all knew about each other having Vimanas. Here's Adrienne Meyer, research scholar from Stanford, saying this began around the 4th century BC, according to her research. So just in case everyone who saw the last one's like, who's this crackpot Sean? He's not a PhD. He's not an official historian. He doesn't have, Stanford researcher is saying the same stuff, right? So the traveling Greek sage Apollodorus of Tyana observed automated servants and self-propelled carts in the courts of the ruler of India, and India was centuries ahead of Europe in the technology of distillation and hydraulics.
Centuries ahead.
What happened to India? Now they can't figure out toilets.
I know, they're all messed up, man. What the heck?
Well, so much warfare, disease. Remember, Alexander the Great conquered them like crazy. So you have a lot of, warfare is usually what destroys much technology and advancement. But I believe, and this is what I think I mentioned last time, I think a lot of the stuff intentionally went underground because even in the ancient days, what like some of the quotes you read last time, this ancient technology was a privileged opportunity for a select few to
Yeah.
operate. So the average person didn't have this. So therefore, in the ancient world, when a nation gets conquered, you typically take out the kings, the princes, and all the dignitaries, all the administrators. You take them out and you put your own vassal administrators in. So if the Mongols come in and attack Kazakhstan or northern India or whatever and take out a ruling family and all their administrators, and then the Mongols don't have this type of technology, but they've now taken over, the tech is lost. It's just that quick. You know what I mean? So it's a fascinating concept. It continues though. This is the most interesting part to me. Myths featuring flying chariots and synthetic swans, animated servants, giant robots, machines, and the like appear in the Mahabharata, the Ramayana, and this is tough, and the Kata Sarati Sagara,
Nice.
and the Haravamsa, and other works. Self-navigating ships appear in Egyptian texts and Homer's Odyssey. Android and animal automatons are described in Homer's Iliad and in Chinese chronicles. The most
You know what's
detailed
fascinating, Sean? Doesn't the labyrinth and the Minotaur also appear in Homer's Odyssey?
yeah. Yeah, so this is
That's just going back for the listeners to the previous episode we did where we talked quite a bit about labyrinths and how it applies.
so and this is, you remember the demon chased the person in the labyrinth. So check out what we're about to read here. The most detailed account is in the Lokapananadi from Burma. After Buddha's death, the story recounts that King, let's just call him King AJ, he preserved his bodily remains in a hidden chamber under a stupa. The precious relics were guarded by the Bhuta Vahana Yantra, which means spirit moving machines.
Spirit movement machines.
So the ancient Indians believed that these automatons were powered by spirits.
That sounds a lot like these machine elves that these people are seeing on these DMT trips. These entities that appear machine-like and jester-like as well.
Well, are they machine-like, or are they just working around machine? They were like in a machine-like realm, I believe.
Right. Well, it's like this constant connection between the spiritual realm and technology, and it's interesting because we have here spirit movement machines or a machine that's inhabited by a spirit, and we're often left speculating with little information, as we often do, whether or not there is this real capability for a spirit to inhabit a machine, and I think that's going to bring us to where we're ultimately going.
What do you see in so much of modern movies, cinemas, comic books, cartoons, anime? It's the ghost in the machine idea.
Yeah.
It's like, it's everywhere, and it's always being that storyline is always being repeated over and over and over. You guys familiar with the D-Wave technology? Have you heard about that?
Is that the low frequency waves? Go ahead and
Those
describe
are
it.
elf waves.
No, it's a big computer they built, like a supercomputer that they. I'm going to give you the super shortcut on this without doing the hour-long presentation, but essentially the creators of the D-Wave don't even really fully understand how it works computing so fast, and sometimes they believe it's somehow powered by something else.
That's interesting.
I think it's been brought up on the show before. It's not quantum. It's something different. Is this like in Tennessee, this D-Wave machine?
I can't remember where the location is, but it's like we cover it in our 42 series, but it's basically like it's highly suspect on like how in the world is it making this type of transfer of information so quickly with how it works. And so it's, even the creators are kind of like amazed by it. They're like, how's this work? It's almost as if it's accessing some other type of realm.
That's fascinating, because every time we talk often about, like, every time there's a new breakthrough in technology, whether it's the phone or the TV or even Morse code or something like that, and now and then certainly with the night vision goggles, it's like every single time there's a breakthrough in technology, one of the first things that happens really early on is like
some flubs with like, oops,
it seems to be spirits communicating through this thing over and over again, and so,
work out the kinks.
Got to work out the spirits.
What do you guys think about all those ghost hunter shows where they have those spirit boxes and they turn them on? And
I mean, I love to ridicule those people, but I also think that there's something going on, because the more we do our research, the more frequency plays a really crucial role in the ability for these things to manifest.
This is like when we were researching Dr. Indrija Puharich, who's like, that's what we brought up, DG Vinod. He's the Indian mystic they were channeling, but he was this like Professor Xavier scout that kind of went around, and he was a little involved. He's on the outskirts of the invention, or at least like the implementation of the Spiritcom, which is like this is the spirit box, and that has led to like I think severe cases of schizophrenia,
yeah, which
in multiple people, which we believe
is demonic oppression.
Yeah, we just think that that's like thinning the veil a little too much, and now you've set your radio antenna to pick up demons.
Yeah.
So
I think that there's probably something. They're probably really onto something when it comes to that spirit box or Spiritcom.
Yeah, so that picture that I had up there, that Buddha is the one on the pedestal in the middle. The two guardians on his right, those were considered the automatons that guarded him, that were animated by the spirits.
Oh, I had no idea that Buddha had automaton guards. That's interesting. What would a man of immense peace need automaton guards for?
Well, here's the Band-Aid on Mr. Buddha been ripped off real quick. He's actually considered the 9th avatar of Vishnu. Vishnu is the one that's prophesied in ancient Indian theology to be the one that returns to destroy mankind. So
Buddha's a real bitch.
Yeah. So Buddha is the most popular of his avatars, which why it began, it's still propagated even to today. But he's considered the 9th avatar of Vishnu, and the correlation of Vishnu to the Egyptians would be Anubis, and the correlation of Vishnu to the Greeks would be Hermes.
And so Vishnu being, because we've already established that Satan would have been the only fallen angel that wasn't cast into the pit.
Vishnu, Anubis is the god of death.
Well, that's what I'm saying. So is the idea here that this is the disembodied spirit of basically a Nephilim that continues to reincarnate into different avatars?
That's the idea, yeah. Yeah, Anubis was the god of death. He also could resurrect people, even though at some point in Egyptian writings it said he got in trouble because he was too good at it. And then basically Anubis was also the chief magician and high priest to Ra, and that's at one point he was god of the underworld until Osiris was given the job instead of him. But Anubis was also the god of war of the Egyptians. He was over what's called the 9 bows of Egypt, which is basically saying he's the general of war for ancient Egypt. So this is where a lot of people don't realize he's also in the Akkadian and Mesopotamians, he was called Nergal or Ea. And so all these gods have different names depending on the culture that you're looking at. Nergal is actually mentioned in the Bible in the book of Jeremiah.
Really?
Yeah.
What does it say about him there?
Well, he's one of the gods that the people are named after because they've renamed themselves in honor of the false gods.
Right.
So just to show you, like, they understood who Nergal was, he had ancient temples. In fact, Nergal is the ancient equivalent. The temples to Nergal were the ancient equivalent to modern day Amazon warehouses. Because what happened in the ancient world, I know, right? So
wait a second, go on.
So what happened? What are you talking about?
What happened in the ancient world is the temples. So this wasn't just with the temples to Nergal, even though his temples were the most prevalent for this amongst the pagans. But this is also how the temple of Yahweh worked as well. So like you had the tithes and the votive offerings and any offerings that the people brought in, whether it's a tithe or a first fruit, any excess that was brought in, the priests of that temple were to redistribute it. Now in God's system, the priests would redistribute it to the orphans, the widows, and the poor in the land. This is Deuteronomy 15. Right. So this is why James in chapter 1, verse 28 says it's a pure and undefiled religion. You look after the widows and the orphans, keep yourself unblemished from the world. So that was the idea, was that, you must look after the poor in your land according to Yahweh. But the pagan nations, no, they were all about profit. And so their temples, like the temple of Nergal, when they received their offerings and votive offerings, it became a massive storehouse of fine linens, precious spices, gold, silver, all the types of things that people would go and give in honor and tribute to Nergal as the god of that temple. And then it became a resource where they would then use for massive points of trade throughout the regions. And the temples of Nergal housed those trades more than any other temple. Like the temple of Pan was more like a grotto for sexual depravity. It wasn't a place like the temple of Nergal, which housed practical goods that then were used for trade.
Mhm.
So do you remember like in First Corinthians 8-10, where Paul is talking about food sacrificed to idols that you might buy in the marketplace? And he's talking about how it's not really a sin because there's nothing wrong with that meat, because it's in the marketplace under the name of a false god, but it's not at the temple of a false god that you're getting this meat from. And then he goes on in chapter 10 to finally, because Paul's kind of long-winded sometimes. In chapter 10, he finally goes on to explain, if you going to buy meat from that location is going to cause your brother to stumble because he doesn't realize like it's not technically, honoring that god to buy meat from that location, the meat's still good because it's just meat and idols are nothing, as Paul tries to explain. He says, but if it's causing your brother to stumble, then just stay away from it altogether. Right. So in the modern equivalent, this would be like, if going to a modern horror movie is a bad look amongst your Christian friends because they think that you're in sin, and that maybe don't go to the horror movie, right? Because is it glorifying God? What are you doing there? Like, what's
It's more
going
trouble
on?
than it's worth.
Yeah. So like, and it may cause someone to stumble if they do go to the horror movie and then suddenly think that magic is something that you should be involved in because they're so susceptible, they're young in their faith type of thing. So like Paul's trying to just draw a practical example of his world in that day of these pagan temples who had excess products that they would sell in their marketplaces, and that these are legitimate marketplaces, but knowing that these items came from votive offerings given to those false gods, some of the are like, don't even go anywhere near it. Those are tainted. Those are spoiled. And Paul's like, no, technically they're not, but I get it if you're uncomfortable with it. You know what I mean? So I'm paraphrasing greatly. But the point is, in the ancient world, they had these marketplaces directly associated with the temples to Nergal in the Middle East. And so in Egypt, it would have been the temple of Anubis. It would have been the temple of Hermes or Hades in Greece. And so that's why you had like the temple to Artemis in Ephesus was more of like a place where they sacrificed people and did early styles of Olympic Games.
Right.
So they different temples for different reasons in the ancient world, right? And all of them was like a very twisted version of what God described with his holy temple.
That's kind of funny because it is like, it is nothing new under the sun. We still have these same systems, and they're even ruled by like the same symbols. It's like each time you look into a thing like, Amazon or whatever, you will find some sort of symbolism that's associated with some sort of, ancient god or what have you.
It's also, calling back to the episode we did yesterday, we had a guest on that is trying to correlate the Great Pyramid of Giza, the big one, as he's saying that it was originally meant to be a temple to God, Yahweh.
Yeah, he said there's no hieroglyphs in it. There's no paganism in it. And if you look at the system inside of this one pyramid in particular, it tells the story of basically, the fall and then the redemption through Christ, the gospel and all these different things. And it's like, it's actually pretty fascinating.
Down to the measure. It was
even down to the measurements. Yeah. This idea that they just co-opt these systems and that, they don't really create anything, that they just invert.
Yeah. That they're poor imitators that pervert everything,
Yes.
So this is why, like in the law of God, he would say, hey, avoid debauchery, sexual morality, avoid, taking your neighbor's wife, avoid taking your neighbor's daughter, that kind of stuff. But the ancient temples to Baal and to Zeus and to all these other gods, like they would, it was a part of the ritual was the sex magic. It was a part of, like, they had male and female prostitutes there. So after you went and provided your votive offering or your guilt offering or whatever, then you turn to the prostitutes and engage in some sort of act, usually involving lots of alcohol and drugs. And therefore it was a very enticing religion.
Sure.
So imagine Yahweh telling all these people, okay, guys, I want you to be set apart. I want you to come worship me. No, we're not having sex at our service. No. In fact,
but they're having sex over there in the Amazon building.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Like over in the temple to Baal, like they're getting down. Like, no, we don't do that over here. So you can imagine why it's called the lust of the flesh, that they lusted after the false gods, because there was genuine lust involved as far as, like, the enticement of, oh, you've got all these, pick, you want male or female, pick your choice. You can, what do you want to go do? And so this is where the book of Joel, chapter 3, Yahweh promises he's going to deal with the people who sold his sons and daughters for a drink to be given into prostitution to the false gods. So it's like it's a wonderful, strong prophecy of like, I will deal with you in judgment in the Valley of Jehoshaphat, because he's, obviously he's keeping track of everything we're doing. So this is the ancient world. It's really gross. It's this cogdis of they're stealing money from you because they're not redistributing it to you for your society. They're making profit off of it. The kings are getting wealthier. The priests are getting wealthier. They're
Sounds so
placating.
familiar.
Yeah, they're placating and distracting you with lust of the flesh when you come to this temple, while they're stealing your resources from you. It's the epitome of communism.
It also just goes to show you they know what works on humans, as far as our tendency to give into desires of the flesh and easily distracted with bread and circus and things like that.
Feeding my flesh again in Baby Boomerville.
there you
Great
go.
song. Shout out Owen Benjamin.
Feeding my flesh. That's how. Yep, there it goes.
So I'm sorry if I could put those back on screen. I'll run through a few more of these real quick. So long story short, so we get some understanding of why Buddha is so popular even still today in many Eastern countries. But it's nothing new under the sun, guys. This is very Vishnu at its heart. It's Vishnu. Vishnu at its heart was Hermes. It was Anubis. It's the same god. It's Nergal. And so we see aspects of the concepts of these automatons and how they're being used in Mount Olympus, as well as a satirical writing in the 17th century, or I should say 18th century, by Jonathan Swift, where he talks about this place called Laputa, which was a city in the sky full of supposedly smart people that were obsessed with all types of math and astrology and all types of other things. And he's fascinated by these people in the sky because they also had a machine that created knowledge. Like a first level AI machine. Laputa, by the way, is Spanish for whore. And
La puta. Yeah.
That's like great name for a city, flying city.
Well, it's very Book of Revelation. We'll get there in a few minutes.
Yep.
So here we go. This is what Jonathan Swift describes in Gulliver's Travels as the machine of the floating island city of Laputa, a project for improving speculative knowledge by practical and mechanical operation. By this contrivance, the most ignorant person at a reasonable charge with little bodily labor may write books in philosophy, poetry, politics, law, mathematics, and theology with the least assistance for genius or study.
Dude, I cannot see that through any other lens but AI. I mean,
I should not do this. I was thinking about putting today I was like, we should put some transcripts into AI and see what we can get from it. Maybe it can give us a good book outline.
No, bad idea. Bad idea. And of course, that looks like a computer chip. So that's cool.
Yep. And this is a computer chip.
Oh, there it goes.
There you go.
Look at that. Look at that.
Yeah.
Kind of hard to unsee, huh?
That's it, man. Why is Jonathan Swift, a fictional satirical writing, why is he writing about this back in the day? Why is he writing about a floating city where there's a machine that can create knowledge of all sorts just at the turn of a knob?
It is the same exact
I'd be
crap
interested
on repeat.
I'd be interested in hearing what he was channeling.
Oh, yeah. To gain this kind of... Yeah,
well, because remember, he also talks about giants, the Gulliver's Travels. So, he meets the big people, the little people, he meets the people floating in the sky. So, yeah. And that Laputa floating in the sky, we see it in all forms of media still to this day. They cannot stop showing it in all forms of media to this day.
The Avengers, right?
They did it in the Avengers Age of Ultron. It's literally about AI and a flying city. Yeah.
Yep. So the 4 types of AI, just a brief overview for anyone in the audience. There's reactive learning. Okay. IBM supercomputers. There's limited memory. This is the kind of AI they're putting in the Tesla cars, analyzing things in real time. Then there's the Terminator style, right? Which is theory of mind, meaning that this could be a partially, not sentient, but just basically partially fully capable of acting like one of us with all the knowledge it has. Yeah, it's like an automaton that's really well programmed, almost as if it's programmed with the knowledge of the gods. Like Talon was introduced, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, you've got the most advanced, which some people theorize whether we've actually gotten there yet or not, which is a self-aware type of AI, right? Does it really understand itself? That's from that movie Ex Machina. But this is where it gets wild because NASA's been at this for some time, and people don't realize this. So this is NASA in the 1980s. There's a guy that set off to try to figure out how to create AI in the 1980s worked for NASA, and he decided that Sanskrit from ancient India was the best language to create an artificial intelligence.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, so he says, this is a quote from him, that Sanskrit's an ancient language from India, the ancient Hindu language. Sanskrit played an important role in many intellectual communities. Structure of Sanskrit makes it suitable for artificial intelligence. And the story began in 1985. NASA scientists published a research paper titled The Vedic Science Knowledge Representation of Sanskrit and Artificial Intelligence. Rick Briggs was a scientist who published the official research paper. In the paper, Rick mentioned how Sanskrit's the best natural language for the development of AI-based software. He represented his ideas, and the outcome of the AI development and natural language can be converted into a logical programming language.
Huh. I wonder why.
So-
I mean, I'm sure they're not going to explain it here, but I wonder what about. I mean, given how
Oh, I'll
advanced they
explain it
were.
for you.
Oh,
I'll
please
explain
go
it,
ahead.
yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I have the highlight at the very bottom as well. NASA, as a result of this, now has an entire department dedicated to Sanskrit.
Oh my goodness,
That's what
man.
they're doing. They're not going to the moon.
No, they're just giving us fake space crap, and then meanwhile they're studying Sanskrit, trying to breathe life into AI.
Yeah, so back in '85 was when Rick Briggs started this, and they opened up this new department. And the idea, I'm going to read down here some of this bolded language in the middle of the paragraph. He says, there's at least one language, Sanskrit, which was for the duration of almost 1,000 years, was a living spoken language with a considerable literature of its own. Besides works of literary value, there was a long philosophical and grammatical tradition that has continued to exist with undiminished vigor until the present century. Among the accomplishments of the grammarians can be reckoned a method for paraphrasing Sanskrit in a manner that's identical not only in essence, but in the form with current work in AI. This article demonstrates the natural language can be served as an artificial language also, and that much work in AI has been reinventing a wheel millennia old.
Man,
Wow.
Okay,
So what's up with this building up here that you're showing me?
this is just early NASA to modern NASA. It's basically, this was taken from episode 12 of Investigating Babylon, where I talk about NASA as a whole. And I just talk about how in case you ever wondered why the Pushpaka Vimanas and some of those Vimanas we reviewed, they have some similar features to the blimps of the early 20th century.
Zeppelins and such.
In the Zeppelins, and the military was heavily invested in the Zeppelins until, which is an old hangar for them. This facility is still a part of NASA. But then you ask yourself why, like if they can just stay up there almost indefinitely, why would they get rid of them? Why are we going to, all this other types of aeronautics just because it can go faster, when they're recreating the purposes of the blimps with modern day HAPS, the high altitude plane systems that can become like 5G towers in the air that fly around for like 3-4 months at a time. But the original concept, a lot of people theorize because NASA at one point in history decided they wanted to put a lockdown on all helium in the United States.
So they did the Hindenburg kind of false flag situation, and that really put the public off to any further research and development on that.
That is the theory. Yeah. Is
That's
that they want to control the helium resources, stop promoting blimps, stop talking about them, stop making them for the average person to use. And we're going to use helium for something else. I don't know what else, but so basically they stopped with all that. That's why those pictures are up there. It's goes into other things, but I did want to draw it back into what we were talking about with the automatons, the ideas of ancient India. Why is NASA obsessed with ancient India? And we see that the word nasa is actually from ancient Sanskrit. I know that it's the Hebrew word to deceive or to lift up.
People
but
like
it's
that one.
Yeah, but it's also in ancient Sanskrit. And these are all the religious texts that I documented here in ancient Sanskrit, where it's translated in a variety of ways. But the number one way it's translated is destruction. And some of the vessel capsules that you see for the moon missions and things like that are literally shaped exactly like ancient Vimanas.
Oh, wow.
That one, yeah, the one that they said that they went to the moon with recently, India, is shaped like this Vimana, this top one.
That's funny.
I also want to say I don't appreciate the anti-Semitic dog whistle with the second one there.
Yeah, constantly. It's not just it comes up nose and nostrils comes up a lot.
Nose?
So
Nostrils.
it's either destroyed or nose, which is fascinating.
Yeah.
Fascinating.
Well, it's using the word nose in the sense that like it's a stench in your nostrils, so therefore it's dedicated to destruction.
Gotcha.
So
Gotcha.
it's not Speaking of a facial feature, but
All right.
yeah. So basically, that's the deep, just a small entrance into the deep intertangling of ancient India and modern day NASA, which doesn't seem to make a lot of sense.
That's interesting. India comes up a lot on this show because it seems glaringly obvious to me that their pantheon are Nephilim, and so we'll talk about that aspect quite a bit. But I got to admit, did not delve too deeply into the technological aspect of ancient India. And this feels like a crucial piece of the puzzle. This last episode that we did with you and this one, it's like, man, that's what I say. When people are looking at the Bible and they go, this is strictly allegorical. I'm like, you're lacking context. And I wish that people would just, pump the brakes and just listen a little bit. You're not going to die. Just listen. And see what there is out there. But people get so reactive, man.
Can we do a few more minutes more? Because I unfortunately do have to wrap up. Before I know
you're a terrible person.
It's blame my wife.
Well, you blame us because we keep derailing this fine gentleman.
It's
okay,
you.
Okay, yeah, it's me. let's keep going, Sean.
So this is according to, I have all the citations here at the bottom.
Can you say that? Can you say
Go
that?
ahead,
one,
Sean. Say it.
I dare you.
Yeah, that. Oh goodness. Rasa Raha Siagnia. I can't even do it. Raha Siagni Od Hikari. I just feel like these people have a lisp that they never fixed.
Yeah,
And,
there's a speech impediment at the root of
Yeah.
this.
So anyway, in this sutra number 2, it talks about the pilot who knows the secrets. And these were the 32 secrets the pilot needed to learn from the competent preceptor. And only such a person was fit to be entrusted with the aeroplane and no others. There's 32 secrets of working of the Vimana. This is the flight manual for the Vimana.
Mm-hmm.
32 secrets, not 33.
Well,
huh?
it's a weird way to say it, but like, yeah, there's 32 bits of instruction that you have. Secrets is an interesting language to use, but yeah.
Yeah. And so he must know the structure of the airplane, know the means of its takeoff and ascent to the sky, know how to drive it and how to halt it when necessary, how to maneuver it and how to make it perform spectacular feats in the sky without crashing. These are the secrets given in the Rahashia Laha.
Yeah, that's like you must know the X amount of secrets to driving the Hyundai Elantra in order to drive the Hyundai Elantra.
That's right.
Yeah, okay.
So these are people that are being translated from in modernity by the Aeronautical Society of India. So the Buddha explains that, as explained in the Vayatutata Parakana, whatever, by harnessing the powers of the Yasa, the Viyasa, the Prayasa in the 8th atmospheric layer covering the Earth to attract the dark content of the solar ray and use it to hide the Vimana from the enemy. You guys remember in 2022, supposedly the Navy released a picture of a UAP flying. It was just a black little blob that the F-16s were chasing.
Was that the thing that looked like a small jellyfish or something like that?
I don't remember that particular one. But I think it was just they assumed it was a craft that was flying alongside them that they were trying to chase, and then it ended up just taking
I have
off.
it here.
But it was basically black, and it was undistinguishable, like it was a smudge on the screen almost.
Oh yeah. Okay, I remember that.
Was it? I don't know if it's this thing, but let me pull this up.
Well,
really
probably at
quickly.
high speeds when you get to moving, it looks
This is like some kind of weird declassified. I don't know what this is.
That's interesting.
This thing, you couldn't see even this much shape out of it. It just looked like they were chasing a smudge.
Yeah, like as if it was like a small dense cloud of black.
Like it was pixelated and they couldn't figure out what it was. And I'm suggesting it's they were witnessing one of the 32 secrets.
Ah, interesting. Concealing from the enemy.
And that's wild because, obviously military technology and things like that, especially when it comes to reverse engineering, supposed crash craft, the ability to cloak, the cloaking mechanism is something that they're constantly pursuing. It's wild that these elements existed. You couldn't say, in my opinion, that this is just a fascination by human beings, and that's why you find these patterns even back in ancient India. It's like, no, that's because this is inherent to the human experience. This is something that these things could do.
So this statement says they're harnessing the powers of the 8th atmospheric layer to create this effect. What in the world is that? Right? So to me, this is not just something you stumble upon to. Mankind doesn't naturally live in, be around, experiment with the 8th atmospheric layer. But an angel may be able to, right?
Mhm.
Specifically, a rebellious angel who watched creation being happen and then decides to take all those secrets, like First Enoch says, they taught mankind the secrets of heaven. Men were striving to learn,
Yeah.
and then be able to take some of those deeper secrets and manipulate them for evil. So we also have Driyasha says, by collision of the electric power and the wind power in the atmosphere, a glow is created whose reflection is to be caught in the Vishwa Kriya Drapana, or the mirror at the front of the Vimana. And by its manipulation, it produces a Maya Vimana, or a camouflage Vimana.
Wow. That's wild. So we're talking about active camo. You know, this ability to make it look like it disappeared. That's fascinating. Oh my goodness.
It goes on to say the impulse is generated in 7 stages. The mercury propellant is first vaporized, fed into the thruster discharge chamber, ionized, converted into plasma by a combination with electrons, broke down electrically, and then accelerated through small openings in a screen to pass out of the engine at velocities between 1,200 to 3,000 kilometers per minute,
This
or
is awfully specific.
745. Yeah. Oh, by the way, I'm sorry. I took highlights from this. I'm sorry. This is NASA talking about their ion Mercury engine that they created, which can move this fast. Was
And this is
exactly
how
what you
it's
see.
designed. This is how it's described by, you know, in ancient India too. I remember them saying
Yes.
that red mercury was the propulsion method.
Yes. And so this is why when you see the concepts, people are always giving the testimony, oh, I saw it, and then just in a flash it was gone.
Yep.
So if an engine can create velocities between 1,200 to 3,000 kilometers per minute, it's going to be gone in a flash.
Yep.
Like, this is super fast. So this is the actual engine in the Smithsonian that's considered an ion thruster powered by Mercury, type 8. That is its inventory number, its picture. This is the Smithsonian website. This is created by NASA.
They just give us these things like, yeah, look at it.
Yeah,
What do you
but
think about that?
this is insane.
We're gonna hide the bones, but look at this. Huh.
Yeah, so it's right here. It's all out in the open, guys. They just don't. People are watching the Kardashians. People are watching football. People are too busy looking on their phones, playing Animal Farm or whatever. Like nobody is paying attention. Nobody is. What would you know if you even went to the Smithsonian and saw this in some case? What would you even understand anyway? What would you?
Oh
even
yeah, if I read
about this,
rocket motor, ion thruster, mercury bombardment
It means
type,
nothing to me.
it means absolutely nothing to me.
Yeah, even the shape of
Wow.
this is kind of like.
Yeah, I
okay,
actually
alright.
look at it like that's rather benign. Why are you showing me like a component to like a I don't know, a thruster? That's what I would get. This is a component to a thruster. K.
yeah, it's pretty wild. So this is where you have on the left hand side one of the Vimanas that are described in some of the ancient depictions from the engineers in India. Then you on the middle picture is supposedly real footage of a triangular shaped craft that is glowing in the sky but indistinguishable. It sounds very much like that camouflaging mechanism we just read about, where it takes the light and pushes it around the vehicle to make it glow. And then on the right hand side is an actual triangle craft that people have caught in the sky. I think this is the one over Phoenix or whatever. And it's just interesting because it looks as if this one's not being cloaked, but the one in the middle could very well be cloaked by these techniques.
We often say like that these things are reverse engineered technology that were given to us by, the fallen or the Nephilim, but it doesn't have to be recently. It could just be a rediscovery of, I guess, Vedic texts.
Yeah. Yeah. And so here's just another little just concept about NASA being, a lot of people think that there's like a black budget NASA versus the, public NASA concept, where they think, oh, they give all, $22 million a year or $22 billion a year to NASA. And then what, we're not going to the moon. We're not doing, we just keep throwing up balloons to check the weather. And like, then all this, this supposed rocket research has been transferred to SpaceX, which is a private company, but then they get subsidized with like $4 or $5 billion a year from the government. So people are like, what's the point of NASA here? Guys, it's nothing but a propaganda concept. It's a look over here, hope in this over here.
Yep.
And it's a stagecraft to not just to deceive you, but it's an homage, in my opinion, to the ancient gods. And this is why the most famous NASA building, which hosts the rockets and the craft, very, very similar to the Osiris Temple in Egypt. This is a picture of the ISS over the Earth that they took. I don't know who took this picture. That's another conversation.
Yeah.
But this is an official NASA photo of the ISS from a very specific angle.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then you have all of this stuff I just try to show people in the media. That's the indoctrination of these concepts of ancient tech. Automatons are on the way if they're not already here. We've been being prepped for the robotics AI revolution for like 50 years now.
Oh yeah.
This is a very popular one. A lot of people remember as a child.
It's a great movie.
Yeah, it's an intelligent flying robot that fell to the earth. Day the earth stood still, massive sphere shows up. This guy gets the Keanu Reeves character. Klaatu gets out. He's the messenger who is enforced by Gort, the automaton, he wants to kill mankind because of they won't change their behavior. This whole movie was like Al Gore's wet dream. It was all about climate change. And then you've got Gort specifically means genetically organized robotic technology by its definition in the movie. I know it's just a couple of cinema that I'm going to be showing you though, but the idea was that all the symbolism is the same in all this cinema. It's a sphere, an automaton, a heralder of doom.
Yep.
And of course the Cyberdyne, we know this kind of concept from the Skynet Terminator series. Did you guys know that the Greek word for Cyberdyne is the word dynamis, which means power and force? It's kind of interesting. Yeah. And then fascinatingly enough, in 2019, they renamed Skynet to Legion in the new Terminator movie.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
They did that sneaky because they know nobody's watching the new Terminator movies.
Yeah.
Like, we could do that. Nobody's going to watch these.
Obviously, Star Wars is a classic. Massive sphere, robot, trying to kill people. Order 66, take out the good people.
Yep.
Take over the Republic, which is pushing back against the Empire. The sphere destroys entire planets with the massive laser pulse. The sphere has a ton of androids and robots full of that type of tech. Little deep cut, Skyworld, the Captain of Tomorrow, same thing. The dude had a bunch of robots to try to fly in New York City and kill everybody. Avengers, you guys already called out Avengers, same concept.
Yep. Flying City in that one, yeah.
Yep.
That's
just
so crazy how they
and then the what if. Yeah, it's everywhere. It's in all things. And this is where we start coalescing to the end of our Investigating Babylon series, where I talk about what is the sphere in the occult? What does it mean? Why do they always glorify it? Why is it always a harbinger of doom? And this is a what if episode for Marvel's talking when the idea was that Ultron actually got all the rings from Thanos and decided to start killing people with the sphere. Again, Laputa is reimagined in this classic anime, Castle in the Sky. This particular anime is the only anime included in the Academy Museum in Hollywood whose building is shaped like a sphere.
That's interesting. Why did they choose that one, huh?
Yeah, I know, right? BioShock.
Oh, BioShock, yeah. Flying Cities in the Sky, Automaton. I love this game. It's a great game.
Yeah, it's a fun game, right? So this is from back to Publius, guy in the early 1st century BC, historian, Latin historian, Roman historian, I should say. He said, meanwhile, this is him describing Zeus's house in Mount Olympus. Meanwhile, Olympus, the seat of sovereign sway, through wide its portals and its conclave, fair the sire of the gods and the king of all mankind, that's Zeus, summoned the immortals to his starry court. When high enthroned, the spreading earth views, and the Tecretius camp and Latium's fierce array, beneath the double-gated dome, the gods were sitting. Zeus himself, the silence broke. So as he is on Mount Olympus and calls the other council to him, it describes Mount Olympus high above the earth with the earth's high enthroned, the spreading earth below him. So another, just multiple historians talking about the idea that they all believe that Zeus didn't just live on the top of a mountain somewhere in Greece, but he actually lived amongst the clouds, above the clouds, technically, in a some sort of conclave, some sort of enclosed area that had portals, which is an ancient word for door, right, or gate. That was a double gated dome, and it was high above the earth. So we constantly get this imagery, and that's Dragon Ball Z. Here's more Castle in the Sky. And then you see all over the world on these buildings are their spheres are lifted up to the top of these buildings. I call them ball top towers. And it's integrated in architecture all around the world. The Petronas Towers, Malaysia. I think that's in Toronto. This is, I think that's in China. It's in Germany. It's everywhere. Dallas, Saudi Arabia. It's everywhere, guys. Ball top towers are everywhere. Do you guys ever wonder why in New York City, that's in Riyadh, in New York City, they drop a ball every year?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, why?
Oh, look at that. The sphere.
sphere.
And yeah.
Sphere is a big one, yeah.
Las
That's a weird
Vegas.
one.
This is in that crazy Kazakhstan city that's like brand new and has occultic stuff everywhere. The ball top towers. And usually the eagle is sitting atop the sphere.
Yeah.
It's everywhere.
Which is a symbol of Zeus.
It's the eagle is a representation of Zeus. Tomorrowland, the massive tower stretching to the sky with the sphere next to it. It's everywhere. Remember what happens in Tomorrowland? The sphere creates reality for the people, and they had to destroy the sphere so they wouldn't use the fears of the people and destroy the world. It's that was a huge movie that came out. Just the symbolism is everywhere of the sphere in the occult. This is just in modernity, where the sphere is represented everywhere at all times. All types of architecture. This is the actual Academy Museum in Hollywood.
You know what I'm realizing with the show? It's like I'm not allowed to like look or like any shapes anymore. All the best shapes.
All the best shapes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, they're all loaded symbolically.
And this one is interesting. New Zealand City Council decided in their main downtown court promenade just to suspend a sphere with small wires just as a decorative piece.
Oh, I was like, what's going on? It's but you could see there's wires, and that's odd.
On all the Capitol buildings in the United States and every state, it's always a sphere. Spheres everywhere, spheres everywhere. And I mean, we get into the domes and the obelisks in another episode of Investigating Babylon, but the spheres are everywhere. This is actually the Pomodoro sphere we'll talk about in a minute. I used to live in Tulsa. This is a picture from Tulsa where they had this massive globe earth with a bunch of people sitting there praising it. And it was supposed to stand for diversity, but it actually turned out to be really creepy. Just again, this is taken from ancient Greece with the god who held up the world, who held up the sphere.
Oh, Atlas.
Sisyphus? Oh,
Atlas.
right,
Atlas. Yeah. Now, in the ancient world, I know this is a debate. People try to debate this topic, but Atlas in the ancient world was not holding up the globe that we talk about today. He was holding up the celestial spheres as they believed in ancient Greece. And there was multiple celestial spheres in the sky that he was supposed to be upholding. And so this is why it's the same homage to the same stuff throughout architecture. It's everywhere. And then we get into the Masonic tracing boards to where the spheres are at the tops of the pillars, always with the all-seeing eye, the big G, all that stuff. It's all a part of their iconography as well. The spheres are everywhere. And then you get into some really weird Middle Ages paintings.
Like scepter in the sphere kind of a deal?
Yes. Or these ancient paintings, these very weird Baroque style paintings, there's people holding spheres.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you're like, what's going on here?
What to make of those. Yeah, there it is, scepter and spear. That is interesting.
The statue of Athena, where she has the god Nike in one hand. He's sitting on top of a sphere in her hand. The spheres are everywhere. The spheres was a part of a symbolism to ancient Ra. And it was referenced as the sun many oftentimes, but other times it wasn't, because it was the serpent that wrapped around the sphere, and the sphere outside of the sun was being used and depicted as being offered to Ra. And there's a book in the 18th century BC. It's called the Book of the Heavenly Cow. It's an ancient Egyptian writing that it goes through a long, detailed storyline of Ra and how he used to live on the earth amongst man, but then there was a great rebellion and he got upset. So he had his chief engineer build him a house in the sky connected to the firmament that he could stay away from mankind.
That's interesting. Sounds familiar. Well, listen, Sean, I know over here Top is sweating. He's got to go get his wife. I hate that we have to bring this in for a landing, but
This is overwhelming.
it's fascinating, man. It's so fascinating. This whole thing, especially with the Vedics, I feel like their mythology is kind of the gift that keeps on giving. You know, like I always say, I don't not believe in that these people had their gods, their pantheons and everything. I think it's all real. They just were fundamentally wrong about the nature of the deities that they worshipped, but that they all have some little piece of the puzzle. And so when people kind of look at me because they go, "Oh, you're Christian, that means you don't believe in these gods or those gods, but your God is real." It's like, no, it's like my God is the God. These things are all creations. The fallen are creations, and then these other things beneath them are their offspring. And yeah, they were given and taught unbelievable technologies and you know, these crazy kind of practices and things like that. But that's all real. That's all real. It's interesting because I think that kind of upsets a lot of other Christians, but that's just the way that I came to understand these things. But we got to bring it in for a landing. Go ahead, Sean.
Yes. Final statement for the landing. In Revelation 12, it talks about Satan, Michael attacking Satan, Satan losing and being hurled to the earth. And it says in verse 13 or verse 12, "Woe to the earth and to the sea, with great fury the devil has come down to you, knowing he only has a short time." So where was he before he was coming down? It says in verse 8, when the dragon was not strong enough and Michael overcame him, he no longer was a place found in heaven for him and his angels. Now that word angel is also the word messengers, which would apply to unclean spirits as well. This is what I talked about previously about that Greek word cosmos kratos, which is the territory of heaven below the moon and the land of the earth, where the unclean spirits and astral spirits inhabit. So when you ask ourselves, is Satan hanging out in some hotel in Paris? Does he have some palace in Lithuania? Is he deep underground, some bunker in Kazakhstan? Or does the Bible already tell us where he is? And there's a moment in the future where God tells Michael, kick him out of this place. He comes down to the earth. Woe to the earth and its inhabitants, for he's come to you with fuel of fury and wrath. And then there's a chaotic time of tribulation that has to be stopped by the return of Christ. So during that 42 months where Satan is thrown down, this is where Apollyon appears. The first and second beast show up. The second beast, which I put forward, is Nurgle. Is the one who creates the AI, which is breathes life into the image of the first beast. So he creates an idol who is a representation of the first beast, which is Osiris. And that image is given the breath of life and goes out through the world, forcing it to worship it or killing people. That is what the god of war did in the ancient world. That is what Hermes did. That's what Anubis did. That's what Vishnu is prophesied to return and do in ancient theology of India.
That's what Buddha's going to do.
Another question. I gotta wrap up.
Unbelievable. Look at you. Go ahead.
Sorry, because you bring this guy here and he's saying all this great
things,
stuff,
dude.
and then you tell me that I got to get my wife, and then why the ninth? Why is he the ninth iteration, and is that the final iteration?
Or no, right? Because
no, there's more, but for whatever reason, that particular avatar, took off because he seemed to be, fat, happy, and peaceful, and it seemed to be like more palpable for different cultures that accepted Hinduism, because it's not just India. Like people in Japan and Korea, they also practice Hinduism stuff. So it's like the Malaysians, a whole bunch of different people groups. So it's not just the Indians, and so that was what was widely adopted, was the picture of the Buddha. He just looks a little, unassuming, fat, little happy guy, like he just had a big meal. You
ever been in a Spanish household that has like Buddha statues, like back in the 90s?
I mean, dumb Spanish people.
Well, okay, that's my family. Thank you. Because I would go and see them in Elizabeth, which is a terrible place to be, and I would always I didn't understand what I didn't think about
either.
it. No, they just had this Buddha, and they would say things like, "Oh, it's like it brings good luck." I'm like, you live in Elizabeth.
So you guys wonder,
really...
you ever wonder why the two witnesses show up in Revelation 11? They have 42 months for testimony, and they can't be killed until the end of those 42 months, and then they're killed by the beast who comes out of the pit. Which is Apollyon, Osiris, that the same character. Like, I think it's going to get old school biblical right before Christ shows up. Like, it's going to get ancient prophets of old. They have miraculous powers. They can inflict plague on any nation that they want at any time, as Revelation 11 says. That's the problem.
Yeah.
And then you've got ancient gods showing up to try to enact forceful worship on people. And as Revelation 13, 7 through 10 says, the first beast goes out and makes war against all nations. And so there's, you have this is why Christ has to come back and, like stop all this. I think that it's going to get extremely old school biblical. And I don't think there'll be like, it's going to get so stark defied, right? You're either persecuted because you, like Revelation 12 says, you believe in the testimony of Jesus Christ and the commandments of God, or you've given your allegiance to the beast, first, second beast, to the dragon, to the unholy trinity, the pantheon of nastiness, and all of their deception. So
I like the pantheon of nastiness.
That's a t-shirt.
That's a
honestly.
t-shirt right there.
And by
That's
the
a
way,
banger.
I really like your t-shirt.
Yeah,
It's,
I like that one too. It's dope.
My brand is like, I try to do things to like make t-shirts to cause a conversation. And I don't know, maybe sometimes I'm just like, I'm doing a lot of artwork here. But this is like, you were created. That I would be like, what do you mean by that?
Yeah,
if I saw you in the street, like, sit down.
That's
have
a great,
seat.
yeah, it's a great conversation starter.
And then 2 hours later, I'd be like, I'm sorry, Sean, but I got to get my wife.
I don't know if I would, if somebody was walking around with a pantheon of nastiness shirt, I don't know that I'd ask.
I wouldn't talk to
I'd be
that
like,
guy.
I don't know what you're talking about, dog, but I don't want to know. Sean, one more time before we get out of here, where can everybody find your work?
yeah, we're on Kingdom of Context on YouTube, Rumble, and Facebook. And so you guys check it out. We have an Investigating Babylon series. We also have the Days of Noah animated series we're making about the lifespan of Noah. But this is our main page, Kingdom of Context. And so we have the playlists right there. You can go to both the Investigating Babylon series and the 42 series playlists. And you can watch all this uninterrupted, which I go into much more detail. Like I'm just giving highlights of this stuff.
Yeah.
So the Investigating Babylon series is kind of like a dark yellow thumbnail there.
Yeah, guys, this is it's a
bottom
no-brainer.
left.
Go over here.
Yeah.
Look at this stuff. This is a wealth of information and knowledge.
Yeah,
Like,
if these past two episodes haven't piqued your interest, I don't know what to tell you. There's something wrong with
this
you.
is simply not for you.
You might be locked in with the pantheon of nastiness if this didn't resonate with you. All
And
right,
for all of
thank
you,
Sean.
for all of you that love time travel movies, we even do a whole episode on that. It's called The Impossible Spell, and we talk about all the symbolism of the triquetra and everything involved in the CERN and all that kind of stuff. So if you like all that stuff, we go into all that as well with history as well. So hopefully as you've been able to demonstrate, as you've been able to see me demonstrate throughout both these videos, I'm not just making up stuff about these symbols. Like these are documented meanings for these things. There's a history there. It correlates with what the Bible's all been saying this whole time. And the Bible took place within all of these events. So like it's all connected, guys.
Yeah, well, Sean does a great job of bringing receipts. So if you guys like all the ideas that we have, Sean actually has information to back up instead of just wild schizophrenic speculation like we have here. Go and check out Kingdom in Context. Sean, thank you so much for your time, brother.
Thank you, guys.
Top, pick up
Absolutely.
your wife.
I will pick up my wife, but until next time, guys, don't forget to obey, submit, and comply. We will see you tomorrow.
The greatest hypnotist on planet Earth is a oblong box in the corner of the room. It is constantly telling us what to believe is real.
You can persuade them that what they see with their eyes is what there is to see.